Her eyes open, but with great difficulty. Everything around her seems to be swimming. Her gaze drops to her hands. It seems that something is wrong. Her fingers and palms should not be so gentle. An unfamiliar man abruptly grabs the girl, not allowing her to come to her senses. An incredible pain is felt inside, and one can clearly hear screams that the heroine has destroyed the future of the family. She is accused of recklessness, because jumping into the water the day before the wedding is a shame. And yet, they address her as Haley. The girl had a sad life. The children at school heard that Kang and Jae were constantly saying strange things. They asked her to stop lying, because it was the wrong approach. They asked her not to say that there were some spirits around, assuming that she was possessed by something. The beauty is an orphan. As if living in such sad conditions is not enough, someone suggested sending a classmate to a shaman they knew in Cheongnam to at least help her sort out her head and cleanse herself. Kang Yi-jae was abandoned by her parents at birth and saw things she shouldn't have seen. She was taken in by her grandmother, Yeon-san, who earned a living doing various jobs and who constantly said that the girl was not possessed. The heroine remembered herself in this form. She was thrown off balance by the fact that some man was screaming like that. She was in a place where she had never been before and had no idea who was hitting her. What kind of missed chance was she talking about? She ended up in the body of some Haley. The level of confusion is growing rapidly. I want to scream and reach out to the stranger so that she can help me get out of my body. I want to ask a question about jumping into the water, but then memories start to come into my head. They are chaotic. Haley actually threw herself into the water. Enough time has passed for the soul to turn into a vengeful spirit or disappear. Does that mean Kang Yi-jae is not just possessed? I have inhabited the body of a dead person? Another scream that brings you back to reality. If you believe your memory, then this man is the girl's father, Duke Duncan. He is gradually becoming more and more angry because he put a lot of effort into the plan. It all comes to the point that he raises his hand. An unfamiliar voice is heard. The young man grins because he sees something truly incredible. It turns out that the Duke's family raises their children in exactly this way. He asks to leave the room. My fiancé and I need to discuss something. Duncan tries to resist, but they repeat the same thing to him, ordering him to get away. The lady recognizes the man as Haley's fiancé, the king of the country, and becomes uneasy, not because of his status, but because of the number of spirits around him. The king learned of a crime worthy of death, but he didn't come for the sake of murder. Maybe she jumped into the water because of the wedding, or maybe because of another lover. There was someone else in Haley's life, but no one cares. If she is destined to live longer, she will die only in a crown. She remembers her past. She was lucky that, in the end, she ended up with her grandmother, who was a shaman. She was very careful, because she tried to avoid any trouble with the spirits that the girl saw around other people. She was special not only in this, but also in that she was very picky about her visitors and very taciturn. She repeatedly warned her granddaughter not to approach rivers, the sea, or any water that could cause harm. The girl did not quite understand what they were telling her, but she knew that there was a great meaning in it. No matter how unsuccessful her life was, she wanted to live long. Having come to someone else's business, the heroine was frightened. They were waiting for an answer from her, asking her to become a queen. The vengeful spirits were watching from the sidelines. They were also waiting. The main thing was not to look them in the eyes. Haley chose the right moment and wanted to ask one question. She was wondering what would happen if she refused. Initially, the wedding was postponed because the bride allegedly caught the flu. And if the girl refused altogether, everyone would think that she had caught some kind of fatal disease, so she would have to die. Everything inside me turned upside down. Fear made me want to scream. The choice was completely unfair. Smiling, the king directly forces me to answer and not drag it out. Before that, he asks if Haley is going to jump into the water again. She screams. She doesn't even think about this option, because inside there is a desire to live. She will never give up life, at least until she puts on the crown. The brunette promises that he will try to believe. Although his look proves that this will be problematic, the assistant advises not to pay attention to the bride's mistake. The king decides to call the Duke to him. The man comes in. Before that, because he was kicked out, he began to feel strange because in the estate it is Duncan who is the owner, and not the master. He is informed that the daughter will soon become queen, as desired. Desire has a downside. It means she's not someone you can talk to as you please. If you feel the urge to raise your hand again, it's best to imagine the king's angry face. The spirits around you whisper only one thing. They're asking you to kill them. The girl sees everything and feels uneasy. The energy of evil spirits is too much for an ordinary person to bear, and the Duke can really be killed. If it were an ordinary person, he would have gone crazy long ago because of what is happening. Haley is still sitting on her knees, so they help her up. Gently kissing her hand, the gentleman remarks that 4 days will be more than enough to recover from the flu. It's not even a question, but the girl nods. Looking at the Duke again, the man says that in that case, the wedding will take place in 4 days. Since the scandal has already spread far and wide, he does not intend to wait any longer, lest it lead to something worse. The family was given the last mercy. This will never happen again. The young man turns to his future wife. They will do everything in their power to improve the situation. The girl should be alive and well. After this, it was time to return to the palace. Some knights would remain to guard the Duncan estate until the wedding. They should watch to see if the Duke would try to raise his hand against the future queen again, as he did before. The heroine stands dumbfounded. She gradually begins to remember more. She will be the wife of Roderick Ferris Blake. It is surprising how he remains alive, although he carries so much resentment and negativity. She would like to get to know the man better. Time flies. 4 days flew by in a flash, and now the cherished wedding day has arrived. Some thought that again, nothing would happen. Before each wedding, a misfortune awaited the bride. Duncan is a terrible man, since he gave his daughter to the king. Kang Yi-je feels at a dead end. Haley's memories are very incomplete. There are many gaps in them. Previously, the king tried to enter into a marriage of convenience twice. His only desire was to find someone from a minor noble family, without a thirst for power. The master did not want to create a powerful relative. The first bride died in an accident. The second, from poison. The third turned out to be successful. However, only the heroine knows the truth that Haley jumped into the water and died. Duncan can't reveal the truth because then God knows what will happen. Roderick comes into the room. The girl spent her last night in the family mansion. The night was wonderful. The lady feels rested, but she is not at ease. It feels like everything is calm around. The lady wants to ask how the young man is still alive. She knows about the accumulation of evil spirits that could have destroyed their master long ago, simply because they want revenge. Finally, you get to be close to the king. If you look at him better, his facial features look nice, his blue eyes are like the sea, and his dark, pitch-black hair sparkles because of the rays of the sun coming through the window. Haley realizes that she has been mindlessly staring at her future husband. She forces him to talk because she is very nervous. Putting his hand on her shoulder, the man says that there is no point in lying. He hates it. You are not the least bit nervous now. The beauty tries to object, but quickly gives up, turning away. She must watch her words as much as possible, because if she is careless, she will definitely make some stupid mistake. In fact, the young man is not particularly worried about what is happening because he understands what is being discussed. A servant has arrived in the room. The time for the wedding ceremony has come. Getting up from her seat, the maiden extends her hand to Blake. Stepping forward, the beauty feels uncomfortable. She has never worn such high heels and bulky clothes before. Habits are frightening, because despite this, she wears such things without a problem, because Haley has worn them all her life. A chill runs down my spine. Fear lurks in my eyes, because a completely new energy has gathered around me. An unfamiliar spirit appears ahead. I have never encountered such energy before. This is not a small or evil spirit. This is something more significant. Looking down at the floor, the girl pretends that nothing is happening. She cannot be shown that she knows anything. The heroine does not answer the king's question about what is happening to her at all. What's happening around is still frightening. The new world is strange. Vengeful spirits roam everywhere, who for some reason decided to gather mostly around Roderick. You need to be extremely careful. The ceremony is over. Evening is approaching. His Majesty is sitting with a glass of drink. He is asked what he thinks about his new wife. A woman, as we know, is full of charm. She can do anything. Although she is young, she is a descendant of the Duncan family, so the master does not consider it necessary to think about anything. The head of the knights, Nephrite, is advised to stop thinking ahead about the most terrible possible scenarios. It seemed that it would be quite easy, but not everything is as clear as it seemed at first. Perhaps those two brides died at the hands of one man, Duke Duncan. It is claimed that it was he who killed them, because he followed a special plan. If the previous two girls had not been mysteriously killed, the gentleman would not have been able to acquire such an influential son-in-law as the Duke. Since he was actively trying to become a relative of the king, the possibility that he was guilty is most likely. However, despite all the plans, the man's daughter decided to commit suicide. She survived and was unable to fulfill her wish, but she does not intend to become queen. However, this fact does not remove suspicion from her father. Nephrite is asked to continue spying on the Duncan family, and then find a way to use Haley to his advantage. The young man talks about many things. Although it is time for him to go, he cannot abandon his bride on her wedding night. The knight suggests not to be too harsh, because after all, the future empress is still young. She was drawn into the chess game of her father and Blake. This is an inappropriate remark for the status of the head of the detachment of knights, because she will still remain under the leadership of Duncan. His Majesty wants to send someone to keep an eye on the queen. He has promised that everything will be done in the best possible way. It is time to go to Haley. The leader of the knights cannot help but notice that the guy is fine. The madness has subsided. Not many people know about the real problem. The king suffers from a nervous disorder and severe insomnia. The symptoms gradually worsened, and rumors that he was going crazy grew. The situation reached such an absurd point that the king could no longer sleep. Walking down the corridor, the gentleman tries his best to maintain his composure. Previously, his condition was more or less normal, but everything changed in an instant. His head was splitting. Everything was swimming before his eyes. Haley sits in the room all alone. The maids have prepared her without even allowing her to choose anything. The nightwear is too thin. Even for the first wedding night, the main goal is to please the king. It was difficult for the woman to get used to it. She had never worn such things. Even when she lived under the name of Kang and Je, she always hid from the eyes of others, being in a remote village. For her, this was a kind of opportunity. Virgin and bachelor spirits are especially full of grievances. The problem is quite common. The virgin could not understand what kind of sin bachelors might have, that they suffer even after their death. There's a knock at the door. Roderick comes into the room. Behind him again, there's a whole bunch of spirits. Fear is reflected on his face. Everything was more or less normal during the day, but everything has changed. Although the man was not on the battlefield or the cemetery, the king turns to the queen. She shudders, because she understands that it is not clear what he will ask for. The duke is surprisingly diligent in getting rid of his children. He sits down next to her. There is silence. Awkwardness hangs in the air. The lady decides to ask if her husband is okay. Turning around, she sees that he has turned completely pale. She can't change anything, but she still tries, asking him not to give in to the voice of the dark spirit. Grabbing his collar with her hands, she shakes him with all her might. Before this, the gentleman had fought for a long time, which meant that he couldn't just give up. The brunette was silent, and for a moment it felt like he had managed to get through, but there was no strength left, and his head fell onto Haley's knees. The condition will gradually improve as the spirit has calmed down a little. An attentive gaze studies the face. The features are incredibly beautiful. The nose and chin are magnificent, unlike Duncan and Kang and Je herself. Even though the young man has completely lost consciousness and is completely weakened, his inherent strength is enormous. He resembles a powerful spirit that was met at a wedding, surrounded by divine energy. Such a person should not be tainted by evil ghosts that suck out all the energy. Remember the words of the grandmother. If Je feels the spirits, then they will also feel her. Contact with the other world means that they will never leave the soul in peace. The girl has an unfortunate fate, however. Everything could have been much worse. There are many doubts inside. Yunsun is right. Only the king protected the heroine from Duncan, who bullied her. All her life, Haley was told that messing with ghosts is fraught with trouble. She does not want to ruin her life even more. But, as a thank you, at least this once she will do it. She will go to help. The girl raises her hands. This one day the man can sleep peacefully. The spirits gather because they notice the energy. The fight against ghosts is a fight of wills. Using her blood, she orders to return to the other world. It becomes quiet around. Everything worked. But these are only temporary measures. It will not be possible to drive them out completely. They will appear again soon. The king will remain in bed for the night. Morning breaks outside. Opening her eyes, the first thing the lady sees is the face of her husband, who is studying her carefully. She screams, "Such a funny reaction." The sleeve of her clothes is torn. The brunette, smiling, asks if this is his doing. Blushing scarlet, the girl assures that they did not have time to do anything to her. After arriving, they immediately went to bed. Exhaling with some displeasure, the king hands over a blanket and asks to cover himself. No one entered the room. It just so happened that the girl herself accidentally tore her clothes. It was hot and uncomfortable, of course. They don't believe her at all. Nodding to avoid continuing the conversation, the blue-eyed man gets up and leaves. He thought that another attack of madness had occurred due to memory loss after what happened. His head was unusually clear. This could not have happened. A lot has changed since Haley's arrival. 4 days have passed since the wedding ceremony. After a hectic first night, the king never showed up again. Duncan decides to put his efforts into creating a suitable talisman. Since that night, vengeful spirits have been haunting him, constantly hovering nearby. Some whisper that Roderick will cut off his wife's head. She doesn't believe in such a thing. Having died once, she thinks that it would be too cruel. The barrier is not so easy to set up. She will have to make and hide many talismans behind photo frames and under furniture. A strange sound is heard. It seems that not all the spirits have come out yet. There is still a little left. The beauty goes to the curtains where it is coming from. She sees a small blue ghost, smiling, asks where the baby's house is. He lives in a castle. You should calm down. She does not want to do anything bad to him. The heroine decides to introduce herself, thinking that in this way she can help him since she ended up in a new world. The girl says her name from the past world for the first time. The baby has no name. In front of him is the first person who was able to see a ghost. The gaze turns to the box. There is a crack on it. It looks like it is about 100 years old. Old things are often inhabited by long-lived spirits, which means the blue one is the spirit of the box. A sense of guilt towards him can be seen in his eyes, because it is because the box is broken that he cannot hide or use his power. Haley does not know how to fix such things. If such a newbie does something wrong, the spirit will disappear from the world. The girl has an idea of what can be done. It is much better. Instead of fixing, she will not allow evil spirits to enter the room. She is busy making talismans. The baby asks to put another of those things that are held in the hands. He must be over 300 years old, and he immediately shows joy when he sees that he will be safe. For the first time since his arrival, the girl feels truly normal. She does not feel any fear. Several days pass, all of which the girl spends bedridden. The energy spent on using the talismans never recovered. And even this is not nearly enough to protect the castle. Previously, I managed to cut out a bracelet, but it was a complete failure. All that remains is to cut out a totem and place it in the room. His Majesty appears completely unexpectedly. The maid said that the condition is not very good. They brought her medicine. Virgo, thanks for the help. Screams are heard behind her. The vengeful spirits can't enter again. The barrier is still effective. However, even it didn't stop the most persistent ones. Haley makes pieces of wood when she feels so bad. The blue-eyed man looks at the item with surprise. Without any signatures, he confiscates the carving knife. The queen, who recently jumped into the water, cannot hold a dangerous weapon in her hands. There are tears in her eyes. Without it, she cannot make a totem. Before leaving the room, the king reminds everyone to take the medicine, because it is an important part. He came because the commander's report seemed suspicious. There was a burning smell in the chambers and some ash was found. Having never figured out what the heroine was cutting out every day, with absolutely nothing else to do, and with doubts about what would happen next if she didn't manage to finish the talisman, Haley decided to start reading. The most interesting thing the girl can choose is the diary of Duncan, the one whose soul left the body. The spirit asks how Yija sees him. Even the monks do not all see him. There are many good priests. It's just that many are charlatans. People so pathetic that they can cheat out of money, pretending to be mystics. The first pages of the book show that the lady lived without thinking about anything, constantly solving only insignificant issues. There is a knock on the door of the room. A personal maid appears on the threshold. Deborah says that the Duke sent a letter along with the medicine. The woman wants to check the pills, but there is no need for this anymore. I have recovered. I do not need medicine. The letter is disturbing. The father writes about how much he cares for his daughter and is worried about her condition. He was just recently beating her. He quickly changed. He wants to ask about something. Turning to the maid, the queen clarifies where the king is. He is in the audience hall, which means the maiden will be helped to get ready and go there. The diary entries are remembered. Haley's emotions about becoming queen have almost disappeared. It is usually the case that when a spirit leaves, emotions naturally flow away. Only people who harbor a very strong grudge or have ambitions violate the anomalies of the world and remain in the form of vengeful spirits or guardians. The hall is filled with swearing. Everyone sitting at the long table cannot calm down. and anger gradually grows inside the king, which begins to spill over. Standing up abruptly, the man menacingly asks if everyone has already spoken. His condition is dangerous. After the coronation that happened 3 years ago, the master's behavior is becoming increasingly cruel. The throne is such a place. Despite this, drawing a sword and shedding blood over trifles is absurd. Roderick has become a completely different person. It is frightening. The queen enters the hall at the most inopportune moment. Together with a servant, she witnesses chaos. Deborah suggests leaving before the situation improves. The heroine decides not to interfere. She feels uneasy about how many vengeful spirits have gathered around the gentleman. He was already improving. The man takes out his sword. The spirits' cries of need to kill have become too confident, and this prompted them to act this way. The girl, without thinking, rushes forward. She hugs her husband. The hall instantly falls silent. His Majesty looks closely at the lady, who already regrets that she behaved inappropriately. Her eyes become normal again, not scarlet. The rosary beads that are on his hands seem to really work. He feels a little better. The brunette looks around. Before this, he fell into another world, not even understanding who is in front of him. After this, the sword is sent back to the sheath, because there is no longer a feeling of desire to kill everyone around who stands in the way. Looking at Haley with displeasure, the man asks what she forgot in the hall, his eyes saying so as not to make her ask twice. Initially, he wanted to talk about Duncan's letter. All that was left was to get out of the situation. The king's relationship with the Duke is bad, and it's dangerous to evoke more negative emotions. Smiling awkwardly, the girl declares that she came to drink tea. Waving her arms, she apologizes for arriving a little late. Last time Roderick brought medicine, but he was never thanked. With a glance, Deborah was asked to help, and she joined in. It seemed the queen liked the tea leaves, nodding. The gentleman asked to bring them again. Turning to the hall, they announce that the audience has come to an end. The two sit down at the table to enjoy pleasant tea. An awkwardness hangs in the room. There is nothing to say. The drink has to be sipped through force. Duncan is pulled out of her thoughts, wondering what she was thinking about so intensely. Looking with a frightened look, the girl asks if she liked the tea. She suggests that the leaves are too bitter even for the master. I wonder why the queen is doing this. Continuing to choke on something that is absolutely disgusting to her, taking the napkin, she begins to wipe her lips so that no liquid remains. The woman talks about whether His Majesty cares about her preferences. He smiles. You can't tell from him that there is a tendency towards violence. The problem is in the spirits that constantly follow him. Haley sits further away, and they are clinging again. In any case, it is tiring to see how bad the gentleman is. He cannot control himself, although he is constantly fighting, trying to stay sane and not change anything. Rising from her seat, the lady carefully approaches and places her hand on the shoulder, asking if the young man is sleeping poorly. He snorts in displeasure, the dark circles under his eyes showing that he is hardly getting the minimum amount of hours. Stopping next to him, the heroine touches her husband's fingers with her hand. She knows what she's doing, but the rest of the room doesn't. The first one who is surprised is Blake. He's not going to move away. He wants to see where it all leads. The leader of the knights standing behind wishes to disappear into the ground. The lady has gone too far. She is not obliged to behave like this. Everyone in the castle is aware that the relationship between the married couple is cold as ice. Haley doesn't give up. She hopes that her actions will help significantly. She needs to explain, saying that manipulation helps her sleep. She used to have insomnia too. No one is trying to hide the lie. The spirits haunted them for a long time, so all the energy became tangled and blocked. For a strong person, the problem is much greater. Previously, people would come to Yonsan asking for an exorcism, and Yijie would help direct the energy. Light manipulations don't hurt. Strong ones don't connect with spirits. Blake has done terrible things in his life. Although he looks like a good person, the currents collide, the body begins to relax, warmth spreads. His eyes gradually close until his consciousness completely switches off. The flow of energy has finally improved. It will be much easier for him to tolerate the spirits. Nothing more can be done, although he will have to try. The head of the knights cries out in surprise. The actions must have seemed strange when a person is tired. The massage helps relieve the tension that has been building up inside. The last few days, he hasn't been able to get any sleep at all. Insomnia constantly takes away the last of her strength, and things only get worse. Nephrite tries to explain what happened in the hall, but the girl doesn't demand an explanation. Sometimes, people can be emotional. One of the assistants is going to bring something for His Majesty, because he might freeze. The queen is also not very comfortable. The lady has finished her tea and wants to leave. The man's voice is very weak. He quietly asks to stay. Everyone standing behind freezes in horror. Strange thoughts are on their minds. The woman does not think about anything like that. The king instinctively moves towards pure energy. He is trying to find comfort after the time he spent in constant suffering. The maid hands over a blanket because the beauty was also tired. Although it did not look like using a talisman, it required high concentration in order to regulate someone else's energy. It's quite tiring to constantly interact with such people. Time passes after the two have drunk tea. The king and queen sit side by side. The master falls asleep almost immediately, and Nephrite recounts all the events. The brunette doesn't dare add that the gentleman hugged the queen and stroked her head. The blue-eyed man feels lost. He must make sure that Haley is comfortable sleeping. The woman has not yet woken up, which means she will not be woken by unnecessary movements. And after, she will spend the night in her husband's room. Everyone in the castle is no longer sure that nothing happened to the couple on the first night. The two servants went to carry out the instructions and clean the room. Getting up, the man was finally convinced that his physical condition had suddenly improved. After some time, the lady opens her eyes. There are many spirits around. It is impossible to breathe. Pink hair remains, which means death has not come. The king's room is terrible. You want to run as fast as you can. Deborah comes to visit the queen. She successfully gets out of the room with ghosts, and she is incredibly happy about it. She asks a lot of questions. She needs to understand why and how she ended up in a cursed place. The king ordered his wife to be taken to his room. A smile lingered on his face. He is quite a strange person. Even without knowing that Haley is helping him, he still repays her. It's good that I helped. The same thing again. It's time to read the next page of the diary. Duncan writes that her father is forcing her to marry His Majesty, but she loves Lawrence. The content is incredibly extensive. All the entries are short, lacking context. There is a hidden desire to learn more about the real owner of the body. Attention is focused on the invitation. The king unexpectedly invited his wife to dinner. They should finally talk about the letter. On the last page, the main character wrote that she does not want to die. It is strange that she decided to jump into the water. Although she did not want to die, it is impossible to avoid fate and destiny, but still. Sometimes it is possible to avoid small troubles. The thread of life is unchangeable. Duncan died, and the soul of Yija entered the body. People easily advise loving fate, but it is difficult. Only those who cannot foresee it can say so. The question is, how many people can actually understand their destiny, knowing exactly how much and how much pain they will experience? Khan never loved her destined future, just as she never loved her past. The king will be dining with Haley for the first time. The invitation was not sent for a pleasant evening. A few days ago, an assistant brought a copy of the letter sent by the Duke to his daughter. Unusually, Duncan offered to invite people from his home to help. He expressed his concern about his health. It is obvious that there is an intention to introduce his relatives into the royal family. Blake chuckled. The Duke must know that this would not be allowed to happen. There was no point in trying to get involved in a petty power struggle. The suggestion was heard. The queen had become her father's puppet. For this reason, from the very beginning, Roderick wanted to put someone of low birth on the royal throne. The decision was made to do nothing but to see what the innocent girl would do in such a situation. At dinner, it is unclear how to start a conversation. Nephrite immediately notices that the mood is not the best. Tension is again hovering around. The arrival of the queen is announced. Looking up, the young man feels incredible relief. The air becomes cleaner. Duncan allows himself to breathe deeply. The bad mood and headache instantly recede. With every step, the refreshing breeze comes closer and closer. This is what is really needed, the gentleman says out loud with a smile. This is really strange. The girl sits down next to him and is the first to start a conversation. The head of the knights is amazed. No one expected her to reveal all her cards and talk about the letter from her father. He needs to listen further. Duncan made an offer to send people from his father's house, purely for help. The message was not long. It was brought for dinner. The man refuses to read the contents. He is interested in what you want to do? This time the girl is given the right to choose. She is free to choose what she will do next. She frowns and clarifies. It is impossible to hold back laughter. Realizing that she said something wrong, the girl immediately apologizes. She is too presumptuous. They give a sign to continue talking. You will have to say what is really on your mind. Following the lead of the king or the duke is not an option. Treating the life of another person frivolously is an even more stupid move. With a slight movement of her hand, taking the letter from the table, the lady shrugs her shoulders. The choice is limited. She will write a reply in which she will refuse assistance from the duke's estate. It would be logical to do just that. Since the girl has not been in the royal family for very long, the master will not be pleased with the acceptance of other people's servants. At first glance, the answer seems reasonable. It is not the time to relax. I don't want to quarrel with the duke, but no matter what reason the king found, the man would still get involved in an argument. It's good that the queen explained everything. You could say she did everyone a favor. The girl's head was filled with uneasy thoughts. Although she had refused, she had not completely turned away from her father. No one knew what would happen in the future, and she needed to remain vigilant. There would be time for future negotiations. Blue-Eyed cannot help but notice that his wife pretends to be naive, but she takes care of everything she needs herself. She has moved away from her father's intentions. She is trying to live her own life. Only this makes her even more politically savvy. The man thinks that the expression that she has rather thick blood will do. Haley is quite an interesting person, although a little suspicious. The conversation is over. The girl wants to start eating because she is very hungry. Before she does this, she smiles and nods to the gentleman. The more he gets to know her, the more interesting she becomes. The consequences may be unclear. It may be a little dangerous. There is a nervous smile on his face. It is hard to believe that Duncan's daughter attracts Roderick, little by little, but he begins to be drawn to her, like a magnet. A severe form of obsession awakens inside. The man announces his imminent departure. He will leave the castle within a week, most likely for 2 or 3 days, to go hunting. At first, the heroine nods, but only then does the realization dawn on her. The first of the 5 commandments of Buddhism comes to mind. It states that a person must not kill, as this accumulates karma, and hunting will ruin the situation. Roderick ruled faithfully for his people, tried for the good of the country. But not everything was so smooth. He had a nickname formed from his middle name. They called him the Mad Beast. The nickname did not just arise out of nowhere. There was a reason for it. It appeared because of the master's madness. Realizing his uncontrollable impulses, Roderick tried to alleviate them with the help of hunting. Without realizing it, he drove himself further and further into the abyss of madness, which finally consumed him. Within a few years, he went down in history as the king who hunted more than anyone else in the history of the kingdom. The more blood is shed, the more karma accumulates. The torment from vengeful spirits will only get worse gradually. I want to ask not to kill, but if the king or knights hear this, they will find it funny. When the time comes to leave, the man jumps on his horse and asks if his wife has anything to say to him. A coldness can be seen in his eyes that does not go away. Being outside the castle isn't as tiring as usual. If anything, you can go on a picnic instead of that very hunt. The brunette asks a direct question, if Haley wants someone to be caught. Exclaiming, the heroine assures that such gifts will not suit her. She wishes him a safe journey. Inside, she still wants to ask him not to go anywhere. Silence hangs. The blue-eyed man asks if the lady is going to add something. Roderick points with his hand at the knight, who is kissing the maid goodbye. The expression on the young lady's face changes. It noticeably blushes, because she does not want to do this. I can't believe that a man expects something like this. It looks absurd. Haley stands with her mouth open. When the king starts laughing out loud, I turn away in displeasure. The heroine snorts. The only thing the woman hopes for is that her husband will return safe and sound, and that he will not be harmed in any way before finally moving forward. They lean towards her with another request. The heroine should stay away from water. It immediately becomes clear that they are worried about the girl's health, and even more worried about the safety of her life. The ears also light up with a bright color. They begin to itch. Spirits are around Roderick again. A dark aura envelops everything around. The woman is tormented by doubts. Will everything be all right? One should only believe in the best. The hunt is in full swing. The king rushes off after his prey, and they shout after him that the night forest is dangerous. As soon as the animal's blood splashes, it becomes dark and quiet all around. The condition shows that things are bad. Everything inside him turns upside down. The spirits begin to whisper with double enthusiasm. He wants to tell himself that he is not that kind of person. He cannot betray his kingdom and his people. If Haley were nearby, everything would have turned out completely differently. Still, he can't hold back. Smiling with a grin, He attacks the animal with a sword in his hands. The knights feel uneasy because the prey has already died. There is no point in disfiguring it so badly. Nephrite does not believe that his former owner cannot be returned. He is completely lost. There is a rustling sound. A bear suddenly attacks. The leader of the squad shouts for the king to leave, but he doesn't have time to come to his senses because he is too busy dealing with the animal. Everything around freezes. His eyes close. It's night outside. The girl is tossing and turning in her bed in her chambers. She can't fall asleep. If Blake continues to kill, his condition will noticeably worsen. She's tired of the constant anxiety. After all, it's not a personal matter. A bright moon is shining outside the window, and I immediately decide to go for a little walk. The castle is huge. There is a garden outside, and there is a lake there, but I don't want to go near the water, and memories pop up in my head. The girl hasn't left her room for a long time, so she feels strange. A slight chill runs through her. That same familiar aura envelops her body, and the same ghost that the girl saw at the wedding appears behind her. The man sits down next to her. They are silent for a while. Incredible energy emanates from the stranger. It cannot be compared to anything at all. He smiles, asking if they see him, but his voice clearly shows that there is confidence. She cringes, wishing the conversation would end quickly. You can't talk to spirits as if it were ordinary. A brilliant idea appears to get up and leave. Unexpected words are heard. You are not the real owner of the body after all. No matter whether the ghost knew about Kang Yiji's true origin, usually those who hold a high rank see things that others cannot see, and they have to make an effort not to speak. Roderick is already on his way. It looks like he is wounded, and the wound is quite serious. They are pressing on the sore spot. It is not clear what he will do if death suddenly comes unexpectedly. He has no heir who can take the place on the throne. Unable to bear it, I have to jump up. A nasty smile freezes on the stranger's face. A scream is heard. What is happening looks more like pure mockery. Spirits are always like this. People are too insignificant for them. The boy tries to get at least one word in, explaining that Roderick is really seriously injured. To believe it or not to believe it is a choice. But even if everything said is a lie, nothing can really be done. The stranger declares that there is every chance of salvation. We must act immediately, otherwise the end will come very soon. Fear and despair are in the eyes. The man is probably already in his castle. His Majesty is barely holding on. The detachment has almost arrived. The brunette wants at least someone to help him. The darkness in front of his eyes worsens. A woman runs out of the garden. A distinct smell of blood is heard. The wounds are serious. Spirits are around. They do not give him peace even in such a difficult moment. A doctor will be called to the chambers. The girl can't figure out what to do next. Only one idea comes to her. She rushes to her room and frantically begins to collect all her little talismans. The baby can't make her stop. He doesn't understand yet. The situation will be corrected later. Running back into the corridor, the lady throws out some parting words about how you can hide from troubles in a box. The king's body is very weak, as is known. When it weakens, vengeful creatures become more active. Her Highness runs to her husband's chambers. No one is allowed there. The maids whisper about what happened on the hunt. Madness has returned. The doctor arrived to try and help, pushing everyone with his elbows. The lady goes inside. She starts to feel sick. The atmosphere is incredibly disgusting. Nephrite asks who dared to open the door. Coming closer, he hands over a napkin, saying that she should cover her nose, otherwise the condition may worsen. The woman assures him that she is fine, but she does not admit that she feels unwell, not because of the smell of blood, that this can still be tolerated, but the energy of evil spirits is much more pressing. The young man lies unconscious. Assistants fuss around him, trying to somehow rectify the situation. He is wounded, but it is not so serious. The realization comes that the spirit fooled him, saying that the king was dying. Kang Yiji is immersed in himself. But then a quiet voice happens. The blue-eyed man wants to kill. The master cannot get rid of the spirits. They are trying to force him to do something terrible. A bloody sword appears in his hand. The girl becomes sad. It is unbearable to see her husband suffer. If mental wounds can be called trauma, then he receives fatal wounds every day, which gradually destroy his body. There is no one to explain their origin. Even the shaman herself has a hard time understanding why spirits are constantly hovering around. No one is able to help him, heal him, or ease such a heavy burden. The girl is told that it will be dangerous to approach. She does not listen, dropping down next to him, checking the indicators, obviously, since his eyes are open. But he still has not come to his senses. The spirits make him feel pain. They are clingy. They continue to whisper about murders. The first rule of battle is to achieve dominance. Evil cannot defeat good. It must come to light. The secret will be revealed and everyone else will see it. The ghosts scream that they will not allow something terrible to happen. The shaman will try to fix everything. Initially, the decision was made not to get involved with ghosts. It changes. There is no one who is like Kang and Zhe. She is the only one in the world who can help a person who is gradually beginning to fade away. Evil creatures will disappear. The man feels lost. It is completely dark around him. He cannot hear anything. It seems that he will not be able to get out. He does not want to remain crazy. Suddenly, in the distance, a bright light is visible in the sky. Someone is persistently calling Roderick. All this time, he was left completely alone. Finally, someone will rescue him from the impenetrable darkness. His Majesty opens his eyes. Haley is standing in front of him. Are you okay? The young man realizes that he can finally look around. Doctors and knights have gathered around him. The spirits are discontentedly indignant that the girl has ruined everything. They almost drove the master to madness. The plan was perfect. Everything will be fine. If a new wave of madness comes, they will help him again. One of the doctors runs up and says that the injury is not serious. This was noticeable from the very beginning. All that remains is to heal the wound. Haley starts coughing. She is not surprised by such a manifestation. Her body is completely weakened. Too much energy was spent. She is asked, what is the purpose of the visit? There is no answer to this question. The spirit directed the lady. It's a shame the man doesn't even want to say thank you. But being upset at a sick person is an even more stupid thing to do. Since my husband has come to his senses, we need to leave quickly. I don't want to interfere with the healing process. They don't let go of her hand. The blue-eyed man hoarsely asks the beauty not to leave, but to stay close a little longer. The maid standing behind has been smiling since the queen arrived. As if by magic, the king has become unusually obedient. The woman still takes her hand back. Her hand is injured. She shouldn't overexert herself. Her gaze drops down. The queen starts screaming. She knew something would happen on the hunt. She should have listened and not gone anywhere. Even after such an explanation, Roderick does not fully understand. There remains one last argument. The girl loves animals too much and cannot allow them to die. Conversations bring her to her senses more strongly. Nephrite does not intervene. Assuming that Duncan has gone mad with excitement, His Majesty thanks everyone for their good work and allows them to leave, leaving only the queen behind. Shame washed over him belatedly. She blames herself. Her inner panic is growing. Lately, she has been doing things that are completely unlike her. She needs to try to improve so that the situation does not end in collapse. A voice distracts him from his self-flagellation. The king reports that he saw a light in the darkness he had been in before he had fully come to his senses. His wife took his hand, as if she had pulled him to the surface from that abyss on her own. The man had a dream where the girl was trying to catch a vengeful spirit. She should try to catch him again, presumably. The heroine saw many scary things when she was drinking in the room. There is no point in lying. Trying to explain the situation is the best solution. The truth is that the king is unable to do anything about himself. He may seem irresponsible. It makes you feel better to realize that this person was always aware of everything that was happening to him. He knew what it was fraught with. His eyes were bright, not at all like the look of someone with such bad karma. I want to ask the real Haley, what would be the most logical thing to do in such a situation? A girl can't just stand and watch a man fall apart alone. She can't leave him. As she descends, the girl asks if her husband is angry. He has no right to be angry. It doesn't matter what feelings the lady is experiencing. The main thing is that she speaks more. For some reason, her voice clears the mind a little. The energy that Duncan possesses and the talismans that are in his pockets change the situation. It is not possible to refuse the conversation. I will start. Sorry if it becomes boring. A few days later, the Duke arrived at the castle with a complaint. He heard that his daughter had fainted again. The offer still stood, as she was too fragile to withstand the unfamiliar life in the palace. Perhaps it would be logical to send a few servants. No one knows that the lady has spent all her energy making many new talismans for the bedroom, so they consider her too weak. Shrugging his shoulders, the gentleman says that he is fulfilling the queen's wish. Duncan does not give in, knowing that his daughter is too reserved and is addressed only respectfully, which her father does not do. Clearing his throat, the man apologizes, arguing that he cares incredibly much. The blue-eyed man wants to tease her by asking if it was true that Haley was beaten for the same reason, but he understands that this would ruin her reputation. In normal times, he would have said anything long ago, without even thinking about it. Times are changing, coming closer. The guest asks for an audience. I will meet with her in person and ask directly. The girl is still weak. If she meets her father, she will have to submit to him. All her wishes are written on his forehead. It's strange that everyone underestimates Haley. She deserves better. Smirking slightly, the young man clarifies why then they don't ask Duncan directly for an audience, why they don't turn to her, but turn to her husband. The Duke will do as he sees fit, but he shouldn't be underestimated. Nephrite hurries after the master. As soon as the conversation ended, he begins to ask with surprise why they suddenly made concessions to the man. And it is so clear that as soon as the girl meets her father, she will have to submit to his will. The conversation turns to whether the knight is doing his job properly. He conducted his own investigation. The girl is described as cheerful, innocent, and loving. She always listens to her parents and is called diligent. In fact, the queen is not like that at all. Roderick enters Her Majesty's chambers. The girl is immediately about to get up, but it is better not to do this, so as not to get dizzy. As soon as the young man passes the barrier around the lady, he feels better. All the spirits are left behind. I'm glad the lady did a great job. The talismans work better than the previous ones. After 10 years of running errands for Grandma Yonsun, she became a good shaman. A little time passed after her health improved. The girl fell ill again, ironically. Blue Eyes snorts, asking if the lady is taking revenge on him for going hunting. Duncan goes crazy, asking to send people from his estate. Imagining his facial expression, it is impossible to hold back laughter. The heroine's face is pale. Maybe she should call the doctors again, and at the same time, really call the servants from the estate. Without turning around, the pink-haired girl continues to quietly giggle. A wave of anger is building inside. Nephrite wants to remind her that the time has come to threaten her, saying that inviting people is impossible because they will be watching the king. He does not need unnecessary problems. His Majesty is once again giving us a choice, and this cannot but be something pleasant. But I want to ask why he has suddenly changed so much, why he is giving us such a choice. Squeezing his hand, the hero thinks that he can't be too open. He needs to observe how his wife behaves and evaluate her reaction. There are no more desires. A pleasant smile never leaves her face. The illusion that there is a right to choose is truly pleasant. As in the case of the question of whether she wants to wear the crown, then she also had no choice. The woman promises that she will send another letter. In the past, she wrote a refusal, but she was not so convincing. The relationship is strange. This is not just submissiveness out of fear. It is quite difficult to understand what is happening. A strange piece of wood attracts attention. It is still on the table next to the bed. Earlier, the gentleman asked her to remove it, but the girl did not listen and did not even explain what the thing meant to her. Are you trying to protest? The woman grabs the craft and declares that it is her hobby. Nothing more. She raises her hand and shows a bracelet that she made a little earlier. She is quite skilled with a knife and takes advantage of this opportunity. The decoration still needs additional carving. She asks for the knife back to finish the job. Giving the stick back, the brunette remarks that it is too small. It makes sense to try a slightly larger size. Big doesn't mean useful. The blue-eyed man freezes and nods, remembering that he has a big one. The servants standing behind don't know where this conversation will lead. Haley is too innocent. Whatever the piece of wood is, it is ugly. So it would be better to put it somewhere out of sight. A totem is not supposed to be beautiful. It has other functions, and a lady has no right to say this out loud. It was time to take his medicine. The maid handed him a small mug, and the king began to relax, which was surprising as he had insomnia, and even all kinds of sleeping pills hadn't helped. Nephrite wonders how it is that when he is around the queen, the lord can relax so noticeably. The rumors were true that the duke's family possesses mysterious abilities. The woman asks to wake up. Such a dream is not very good for health. The man feels that he was caught off guard. He was just talking, and a second later he fell asleep. Getting up from the chair, he asks to move a little. The pink-haired girl nods in surprise. Deborah sends Jade and Nephrite out. She advises them to have a good time. There are ghosts all around, so she would like to see the king out. The young man really can't sleep normally. That's why he clings so strongly to the opportunity. There is no choice. You have to hold out a pillow to put under your head. The woman lies down next to you. She starts a conversation about the words said earlier. Her love is supported, which is strange if you then lie in the same bed. What was said was, of course, sweet, but it was wrong to say such a thing to a husband. Apologies were made. The girl got a little carried away, and that was wrong on her part. There is no strength left at all. The illness has not yet gone away. The pink-haired girl closes her eyes. It feels as if she will soon fall asleep. The man carefully examines his wife. Forgive me for our first night. The young man didn't tear his clothes on purpose, although it looked that way. He doesn't know if he'll continue to behave aggressively. In that case, it's better to immediately call Jade or someone else. He's talking about the nightgown from which the talisman was taken. The girl calmly explains that she is telling the truth, and it is that it was not Roderick who tore the clothes. Nodding, the brunette asks to go to bed. It is obvious that he did not believe her. The truth about the talismans will not be revealed. The gentleman must have had a lot of experience fighting vengeful spirits. They caused him a lot of pain. The woman brushes off the thoughts. She already has a lot of problems. There is no need to worry about such a strong person. The night flies by completely unnoticed. In the morning, the girl wakes up from lack of air. Her body feels heavy. Opening her eyes, the woman realizes that her husband is hugging her, pressing her to his chest. He promised that he would not do anything. You can't trust the words of ghosts or people. For this person, she is a pillow for a good night's sleep, nothing more. Inside there appears a conviction that it is better to think about the best. An idea comes into my head of how to fall asleep again and calm down a little. Before that, it's best to count the sheep that are jumping. The young man is too close. He touches the body. He is definitely touching something. The man lowers his hand lower and hugs her around the waist. Fear is reflected on the young lady's face. Her desire to escape gradually increases. A signal is given inside that she needs to get out. It's definitely not the time to do anything. A quiet voice insists that His Majesty move away. Instead, he turns over, staying on top, his breath hitting his neck, making it impossible to hold back a groan. The girl can't take it anymore. She starts screaming to be let go. She can't breathe anymore. The brunette jumps up and looks in surprise, while his wife wraps herself in a blanket from head to toe. The young man is frightened that he did the same thing again. Removing the blanket, he calms down. Because the clothes are not torn, he quietly asks for forgiveness and clarifies whether the beauty was very frightened. There are tears in her eyes. The expression on her face is a little funny. Silence hangs dangerously over the couple. Feeling a little despair, the hero asks to say at least something, to understand that everything is okay. Haley was scared, or offended at least. The man thought so until she decided to reveal all her cards. It was hot and uncomfortable during sleep. The prince was gentle and unusual. I wanted to indulge a little, because I had never experienced anything like this before. The master leaves. My heart is still pounding wildly. I won't be able to fall asleep again. Time passes. His Majesty has not visited the Queen's chambers for more than 10 days. He avoids the meeting because of recent events. The expression on his face will not be forgotten. Although they are still husband and wife, someday they will have to go further. Tribute arrived from the mining region, but the young man says nothing about it. He asks if the assistant has seen the bracelet that the Queen usually wears. Some kind of strange thing. It is impossible to say whether this is a relic of the past or ahead of its time. Nephrite does not understand what to answer. The relationship between the palaces is not similar to hateful. They have more playful emotions. A lady came to the library to learn more about the king's family tree. She is told that only royalty can view the book. The woman married Roderick. Can't I read it? In her hands is a copy of a document written in a language understood by only a few royals. And for this very reason, it would be more appropriate for Her Majesty to read something else. The girl assures that she understands that the woman didn't mean anything bad. She promises that she will return the book in good condition and just look at it for a bit. The brunette hopes that the words weren't taken to heart. The heroine has her own plan in her head. Moving away, they call the spirit. He seems to be against it, usually. The more secret the entry, the closer it is to the truth. The kid looks at her disapprovingly. You haven't even finished reading Haley's diary. At first, we had to rely on the girl's incomplete memories to survive. So, after some time, it was decided to turn to the notes of the body's owner. But they turned out to be completely stupid. Nothing should have been expected. It turns out that the original Haley and Jay have no common interests. Kang decided on a different method. She set up a barrier and gave talismans to scare away vengeful spirits from the room. I deserve to be helped to find out the content. The kid begins to read. The first king, Arcturus Blake, ascended the throne in the 20th year with the help of the sword he won, and controlled only dark magic. On the centenary of the founding, alliances were made with some families, including Duncan. After several kings, the ghost began to cry, saying that he did not like this kind of activity. He asked to stop, which he was refused, because there was nothing else to do anyway. The girl painstakingly rewrote all the important information. There is no information about Roderick. She will be the next king. The year is 499. The year 500 will be a time of changing the fate of the nation. This is a significant year. Haley died, and her place was taken by a soul from another world. Sounds of joy are heard. The king has not come to the chambers. The baby cannot help but rejoice, because lately the air is cleaner. On that day, on the last day of their meeting, the woman did not hate the young man. He avoids her. He is used to it. The gentleman is training. Quite a lot of time has passed since the last meeting. Duncan is watching him. His heart is pounding. Deborah says that His Majesty and Jade were trained by the same master. The time spent together made them quite close. Before the prince's accession to the throne, they often performed together. It had been a long time since the two had fought. The girl carefully examined the figures quickly moving across the field. Impressive muscles were noticeable. With each movement, His Majesty's energy becomes more and more refined. Sparring with a close friend helps to gradually strengthen his heart. The man is cheerful. Virgo decides to leave the battlefield. They probably won't want to see her. Noticing that she's leaving, the brunette is next to her in a few seconds. Doubt freezes in her eyes. Why are you running away? Initially, the heroine came to talk. She was heading to her room. The blue-eyed man asks to talk to him as usual, without all the embellished politeness. It seemed like the man was avoiding Haley. That incident had forced him to behave this way. She was avoiding contact in every possible way, not wanting to make the situation worse. There was silence. Roderick couldn't bring himself to say what he had come up to her for. Duncan makes another attempt to escape. Only she can do that. She knows exactly how to get on someone's nerves. The displeasure on her face is reflected. Addressed cannot but upset. The brunette takes a beautiful bracelet out of his pocket and gives it to his wife. The piece of jewelry she made looks truly awful. Nephrite notes that the gentleman never behaves like that. He doesn't even pay attention to jewelry. Controlling emotions is not an easy task. The young man does not know how to do it. But there is a drop of something sweet in this. Smiling, the girl sincerely thanks him for the gift, promising to wear it. The master wants to see Haley off. He's finished training. The opponents know each other too well, so they're bored. Jade snorts. The king himself pulled him out. Having a childhood friend is really important. Ji didn't have that. A young man asks a lady how she is doing. Everything is great. He snorts with displeasure. It is customary to respond to a greeting with a greeting, she asks in response. They haven't seen each other for a long time. There was a premise in his head that Haley was a little uneasy, so the man kept his distance. He felt guilty. That day, his look made it clear that all this was wrong, made him feel like an insect. Laughter breaks out. The woman doesn't see a problem with what she did then. Because she was simply surprised, she thinks to herself how glad she is to hear that they don't hate her after all. Blue-eyed avoided meeting without reason. And this is the most offensive thing. The bracelet is on the wrist. It shines noticeably. Of course the thing was to his liking. Then, when the gift was handed over, the queen did not have time to thank her. She was glad that everything was working out this way, but making jewelry was her hobby, even if it turned out completely ugly. An activity of this kind requires a lot of dedication. Taste is unique. It differs from person to person. Snorting, the girl asks not to judge her taste, otherwise they might quarrel. The woman again sees a huge crowd of spirits right behind her that are not going to give her any peace. She sharply puts her hand forward to push them away. Prayer checks are still better than jewelry. The blue-eyed man looks around in surprise. For some reason, he feels much better. The topic shifts to something interesting. The man knows that his wife asked the library for a book about his family tree. As far as I know, the lady can't read anything written because she doesn't belong to the family tree. She's not revealing her cards. I was just curious. I didn't read it. I just decided to take a look. It's unsettling to realize that every action is reported to the king, probably because Haley is the Duke's daughter. The fact itself wasn't reported to the Lord. The librarian said he accidentally made a mistake when addressing the woman. The young man said that she did not belong to the king's family. She seemed to be having a hard time adjusting to life in the castle, and she really needed help to feel better. The words were taken into account. Inside the courtyard, there is a place called Arthur's Forest. I wonder if Haley has heard of it. She is surprised. Only recently they talked about the royal lineage. Duncan has memories of that place. Lately, it has become increasingly difficult to figure out where the thoughts of the former owner of the body are, and where Je is. The bound forest has been in the castle since its foundation. Nobles and officials are prohibited from entering there. The master asks, "Do you want to come with me?" The heroine found herself in the garden and could not contain her emotions. This was the first time she had found herself in a place where there was a huge amount of sacred energy. She almost fell to her knees to pay her respects. The spirit was much stronger than even the one Young San worshipped. The man thinks it's too dark around here, surprisingly. He doesn't seem to see the glow that illuminates the trees at all. It seemed like it would be safer for the king to stay away from the haunted castle, but nothing changes. The most terrible evil spirits cannot enter inside. For the first time since the wedding, the maiden sees such pure energy that hovers in the air. The hero feels quite well. The forest radiates peace. The young man has never entered there before. The girl advises to visit the beautiful place more often, and to fight with Jade more often. The man interrupts her. Such words are like a person who plans to disappear soon. The woman has nothing in mind. She has no thought of dying. Of course, believing the words of a person who recently jumped into the water will be quite problematic. She is not trying to die in order to die. Each person has their own time, which cannot be rushed. Stretching her hands forward, the girl asks for the knife that was taken away earlier to be returned to her, fearing that she might suddenly think of something terrible. The condition of the bracelet is deteriorating. More things similar to the pole need to be made. Haley is more stubborn than she seems. Deciding on this act, her husband promises that he will definitely return the knife. But again, the words are strange. There is definitely some subtext in them. Are you sure you don't intend to die? What is happening does not seem to be the same as the lady not trying to live her life, because people die in the time allotted to them, and nothing more. No one knows what's in Jay's heart. She's probably the kind of person who wants to live until old age. She tried to survive last time too, but no matter how hard she fought, she couldn't escape her fate. Blake looks closely at the expression on the young lady's face. She is definitely not Duncan. Sometimes it seems as if she lives completely alone in another world, and it is not possible to fully understand. The heroine strives to achieve her goals. She meditates every morning to clear her energy. She will continue to strive for the benefit of her new life, her second chance. The next day, Yija picked up the book again. This time, she chose a different one. She wants to read the history of the Kingdom of Cayena. She knows very little. From the very beginning, there was the owner of the Holy Sword, the young man Arthur Lux Blake. And nothing is known about the childhood of the founding king. He saw how the rotten Diamond Empire controlled all evil forces. Eventually, he rose up with the Holy Sword and defeated the empire with divine power. As the empire's families fell apart, the three families that had previously been influential were incorporated into the new kingdom of Cayena. They became the backbone of the noble society during the founding days of the empire, and the movement to restore the Daimon Empire was completely suppressed. The gentleman listens to what is said to him at the meeting. They repeat the same things to him since the foundation, since the time of their ancestors, but the forces of the rebellion have continued their resistance for several years now and do not plan to stop. There's no need to get cocky. It's best to nip these damned actions in the bud. His Majesty lowers his head into his hands. Those gathered are worried. They can't believe they're on the brink of madness again. A lot of time has passed since the last time. Duncan raises his hand, asking if it is not enough to have as many border troops as they already have, asking for his eldest son to be reinstated as commander of the Western Border Patrol. He was demoted 3 years ago without any explanation. The kingdom prefers a policy of advancing to the south. Albert is the deputy commander of the southern troops. The late king provided a good position. It is a pearl on a pig's neck. There is not a day of peace. The tension between the king and the head of the anti-royal faction, Duke Duncan, is growing, and the situation will gradually worsen. The young man can't take it anymore. He suddenly drops his hand, starting to scream. The statements are truly an insult to his family. You should worry about your life. I will not spare you just because you are the queen's father. The girl is busy carving talismans. She is distracted because the gentleman has arrived. He visits his wife quite often, especially lately, as if something is drawing him. Blue Eyes is unhappy. He shouts from the doorway about how Duncan is ruining the situation. Nephrite also noticed that as soon as something strange happens, the man comes to see the queen, There are rumors that he just wants to cuddle with the queen. A laugh bursts out of her chest. The girl doesn't know how else she should react. A new scandal happened completely unexpectedly. The gentleman demands that Haley's brother be reinstated in his position, that she be replaced. The lady doesn't remember about the recovery. She will need to try to dig through Duncan's memories. The very thought of having to read again makes her feel sick. The king asks if he offended the girl. Of course his words did not sound the best. Insulting someone's family is the same as challenging her to a fight. The beauty says that this is not entirely true. Not everything is so smooth in her family. On the first day they met, the man saw Haley being beaten by her father, and this showed him everything. From the very beginning, it became clear that His Majesty was questioning the girl's reputation as a naive and kind fool. Over the past few days, Nephrite began to understand that the queen was definitely not naive. No matter what the lord, the most powerful man in the country, said, she calmly responded, doing it correctly. She is always calm and gentle, almost on the verge of detachment. Such a political trait is inherent in the Duke. The blood connection is really very deep. Roderick asks why his wife does not look him in the eyes. The problem is that the maiden is afraid of getting hurt if she is not careful, and that the knife will be taken away from her again. The king is afraid of such things, but it is difficult not to notice that he feels some affection for Haley. Laughter is heard. The young man is not so petty as to take away something so small. He still does not understand what semantic load the thing that looks like a log carries. The servants will agree with him. The beauty puts forward one of the talismans. She needs to make another one. Carving helps to maintain calm, which is so lacking. In general, one should not talk so absent-mindedly while carving. His Majesty constantly grumbles for no reason. The girl's hobby is quite unusual for her young age, and the heroine smiles and says that the king doesn't look his age either. It doesn't look like the man is 8 years older than Haley. He is at a loss. The woman can't stop laughing. In an indignant tone, she is asked if she said too much. It is wrong and unthinkable to mock the king. He seems to be bothered by the age difference, although, in fact, the difference is only 4 years. In her hands is another statuette. This time, the face is even more ugly than usual. The talisman will be a gift, but the gentleman wants to politely refuse. The heroine understands. The gift is not given because it is beautiful, but because it is made with care. The woman takes the thing back because she didn't like it. There was silence. "Give it back, I was just joking." The talisman must be placed near the bed, on the nightstand. It drives away nightmares and evil spirits. Looking at this carefully, the gentleman skeptically remarks that it is more likely to wake me up from any dream than to drive away nightmares. The beauty is sad. She did it in the hope that she would be able to sleep peacefully. With the skills that Jay has, she will not be able to make the perfect talisman, but even such modest help can be useful to Roderick. I don't really like to tell the truth. Sometimes, very rarely, the sincere prayer of other people can protect you from problems. The problem is that receiving such prayers is not so easy. This fact makes life difficult for many people and often makes them sad. Grandma Yonsun couldn't do anything about it either. The king distracts from thoughts. There is no need to go that far. He was going to accept the talisman. He obviously was not going to refuse, because it is also important to him. The girl's face lights up with joy. Since the man has shown that he is going to accept the gift, the shaman decides to take advantage of the opportunity and gives another one. She can always make new ones for herself. It's a good hobby after all. Being alone all the time is lonely. It's good to be in company. The brunette feels strange. He asks him to excuse him and leaves the room. Nephrite shrugs, thinking that he was a little embarrassed. The queen does not see why there is such a sudden change in mood. She sits back at the table. There is no point in putting off work, because it will not end well. The little boy sitting next to Ija asks her to order the servants to leave them. The knight and the maid are only interfering with their presence. The night is calm. The king goes to rest. He never felt calm. Because sleep always ends extremely quickly, this time everything is completely different. In the morning, the young man opens his eyes. He managed to sleep a little, although the dream was a little sad. His gaze falls on the figurines arranged on the bedside table. He can't believe that they really have some effect. The girl is strange. The faces of the talismans are truly terrible. You don't want to look at them. But since they have a good influence and are also gifts, the morning is not bad at all. As soon as Roderick moves away from them, the spirits press on him again. New meditation. The baby sits nearby and grumbles, asking how long they will continue doing this. He doesn't like it. The heroine doesn't answer. She tries to continue concentrating on the practice, but nothing works out. Thoughts fill her consciousness, constantly distracting her from the most important thing. Because of Haley's diary, read at dawn, everything went down the drain. Usually what was written was so stupid that it made your head hurt. This time, the situation changed. The entry bore some fruit for the first time. The girl wrote about March 10th, 499. She wanted to talk to Lawrence and drop everything to leave Cayenne, but she knew that she would be refused. Haley suggests that maybe she really is as stupid as everyone thinks of her. The heart constantly aches when Jay thinks about the lover of the former owner of the body. But when thoughts are focused on the Duke, then inside there is no feeling, as if they are not related at all. It seemed that the girl truly loved Lawrence with all her heart, even after her soul died. But her heart, remaining in her body, was like ruins turned to ashes by fire. One can only guess what really happened at their last meeting, and find out whether Haley told her lover that she wanted to leave with him after she entered into a marriage of convenience. There is some noise in the corridor that is distracting. The spirit also turns around and reports that something strange is happening there. Roderick is going crazy again. The servants are terrified. It seems his attack is even stronger than usual. Madness has not happened for quite a long time. They did not think that this time the situation would worsen several times. I want to understand at what point everything went wrong. Perhaps the talismans did not work as planned. The queen knew that she could not cope with such a problem on her own. Something had to be done. Throughout her life, Jay has seen several shamans who have ruined their lives trying to do something they can't do out of pity. It would be wiser to turn a blind eye to what is happening and try not to interfere. Mixed images of the king and Lawrence entered her head. Haley didn't want to forget her lover because she felt too wide a range of emotions towards him. Ji wouldn't turn away either. The girl is about to go to His Majesty. He is sitting on the throne. There are spirits around that do not give him peace, screaming that his soul does not belong to him, asking to kill. Jade was nearby, trying to calm her down a little, but nothing helps. The queen arrived and from the doorway asked about her husband's condition. There was no point in stopping her. The knight explained that the man was not going crazy like that, but one should be careful and not approach him. Walking forward, the maiden wants to change something. Something is definitely not right with him. He is only trying to overcome a strong impulse of madness. He still needs help. Coming closer, the heroine takes off the rosary from her hand. She cannot use them as usual. The gentleman has a bloodthirsty look. Nephrite does not interfere, but if the man goes crazy, he immediately promises to intervene. The queen always acts in dangerous moments. She should be scared when someone with a thirst for murder stands in front of her. The woman trembles. The evil aura does not frighten her, but she feels unpleasant. No matter how many times she feels it, it still makes her shudder. Only the human heart shakes. The conviction is present. Adhering to intentions, she will move on. Those who follow the natural will prosper, and those who go against nature will eventually know destruction. For those who go against nature, destruction is destined. The maiden repeats the same words, moving closer. The master's strength gradually leaves him. The servants are able to let him go. His wife appears next to him. The blue-eyed man leans on Haley's body. In a quiet voice, he says that he slept well. The pieces of wood that the queen had made had a good effect. The attack did not occur because he had not slept. Unable to bear it, Roderick fell down, showing no signs of being conscious. The servants around them start to fuss. The sleeping man appears in front of them. After a while, the young man opens his eyes. Haley carefully kneads his palms. The brunette quietly asks not to approach him when he is in this state. I do not guarantee your safety. Words are too weak, as for someone who wants to warn. His Majesty has his own thoughts on this matter. Duncan reminds that she comes from a ducal family. She finds her own way to survive better than anyone. Never would a girl get involved in something that could put her life in danger. They should maintain a certain temperature so that it doesn't get even hotter. The young man asks what they are doing with his hands. After a workout, it's nice to relieve stress. This is another lie. My wife always lies a little and doesn't tell me everything, keeping an ambiguous distance. It's as if she wants to show something by doing this. The gentleman falls asleep again. The two look busy. If you have to choose which of them is the beast, it will definitely be the king. Although, for some reason, it looks like the girl is pressing on him many times more. This time, she could be crushed by his weight, doing it completely by accident. Jade is asked, since when the gentleman has been in such a state? He has been unwell since the morning. The woman changes the direction of the question. She is interested in when the young man has such a terrible character. The words are chosen incorrectly, but she was understood. After coming to power, Roderick began to frequently complain of terrible headaches. The situation recently began to worsen. The king ascended the throne in 497. He has been suffering from attacks for 3 years. It is difficult for him. The brunette presses closer, his head resting on his knees. Judging by the way he clings to the energy of the beads, it means that he is already at the limit of his capabilities. Jade should compete with his childhood friend more often. Sometimes when he picks up a weapon, he immediately becomes furious. The last time the lady came to training, it seemed that everything was fine. Despite Jade's words, banning him from training would not be the best idea. His Majesty has the energy of an innate leader. The lady was convinced of this as soon as she hugged him, this energy of the sacred emperor, which they dare to call fatal. If he hadn't tried to control every attack, the heroine certainly wouldn't have been able to contain him. Nephrite will take Master Arthur to the forest more often to get some fresh air. The man doesn't see this as possible. Entry is prohibited to everyone except members of the royal family. The girl remembers her husband's words. He told her about this. How could I forget? There is complete confusion in her head. The reason could well be the fact that the memories of the real Haley are mixed with Jay. She is going back to her chambers. Jade will take care of the king. The beauty slept the whole day. The last thing she remembered was how, upon returning, she collapsed on the bed. She didn't feel like meditating. The rosary was still intact, although worn. After what happened, Roderick would probably avoid meeting. The woman was mistaken. The gentleman came to visit her. She assumed that the Duke was again talking some heresy. It turned out that he did not come for this reason. The royal chamberlain does not understand how the queen can be so indifferent and cold. She can afford it, because they are equals. The young man plays the offended one. He does not need a reason to come to his wife's room, obviously. He came as a patient who regularly visits the doctor. Duncan notes that once they didn't even want to accept gifts from her. It was just once. The gentleman understands that she doesn't miss an opportunity to be sarcastic. Her father-in-law constantly irritates him. She shouldn't do the same. Since this is how it happened, the hero offers to drink tea, which he was unable to try due to what happened that day. And the servants quickly prepare the drink and various delicacies to go with it. While picking up one of the most delicious cookies, Roderick carefully examines the girl sitting opposite him. He tries to figure out the right way for them to talk. He asks if Haley can do the same to him as she did in the office, like a cat kneading his hands with her paws. And it becomes offensive that the great technique of shamans has acquired such a frivolous name. Once again, the hero couldn't sleep. Apparently, the talismans weren't working. He thought that the prayers weren't getting through. It seemed like the girl was thinking about someone else, since she couldn't help her husband. The maid and the chamberlain are whispering. He is not sure whether nothing happened between the two on their wedding night, and she assures him that the man considers the practice absurd, but still asks, he probably suspects something. From the lady's expression, one can understand that she is wary of something, but it does not seem like she wants to harm the royal family. The blue-eyed man is pushing her to make a decision. Do a little, I ask you. She's persistent and has no choice. Haley gets up from her seat. She instantly decides that she'll pretend, so as not to seem strange. She takes her palm back and begins practicing. It is possible to take a closer look at the hands, as the king thought. For a person who has trained a lot, she does not have many muscles. The fingertips are pleasant, soft. The skin is thin, so in some places, random calluses appeared due to carving. And then they healed. The hero could not understand what a hobby is for Duncan. Wood carving? Such an activity cannot bring pleasure. The girl did not do this before coming to the castle. The blue-eyed man draws his own conclusions. It's time to try to talk about everything in order to understand each other a little more. Turning around, the hero can't get a word out. He remains silent, and then quietly asks if Haley is trying to seduce him. She doesn't understand at all what he's talking about, and blinks her eyes in surprise. The front tie on the neckline has come undone. The girl tries to tie it back, but nothing works. She begins to panic, her hands shaking from futile efforts. The woman feels too lost. She turns to the maid because she is obliged to help. The brunette ignores because she is too busy discussing. The chamberlain, who had previously thought that something had happened between the couple, was already regretting his words. Deborah was openly gloating. The king and queen were so nervous in front of each other that everything was visible. No one dared question the competence of the maids. The man had long ago noticed that the servants liked to discuss something completely irrelevant. Without wasting time, he pulled his hands closer to his wife. She screamed and asked to move away. I just want to help with the ties. Haley allows it, but she is completely red. Her cheeks are burning with shame. As soon as it's all over, she squeals that it was indecent. She should have pretended until the very end that nothing happened. The ties could have been reported in some other way. Shrugging his shoulders, the gentleman, in his defense, states that there were no other ways out of the situation. The servants stubbornly pretended that they did not notice anything. What happened can be considered Roderick's mistake. He does not want to continue the meaningless conversation. His wife's expression is offended again. Putting her hand on her head, she asks for forgiveness. Please, answer me. Her eyes look at the floor so as not to meet her husband's gaze. At that moment, the lady is completely unpleasant to any contact. While the king feels much better than before, I admit, I also feel calmer. Virgo knows how to manipulate feelings. Doing it quite skillfully, the heroine is no longer angry. At least, not as much. She is not going to do what is obvious again. However, Kang Yi-jae is prone to repeating her mistakes. As always, everything goes wrong. The girl promised herself, and again broke her promise. Spirits are constantly circling around. You have to try to fight them. Protection is no joke. No matter how hard the lady tries, she can't force herself to pretend that nothing is happening. The baby constantly encourages her friend, but inside, she feels incredibly tired. Nephrite comes to the gentleman with a stack of papers in his hands. It is noticeable that his general condition is improving. He did not come empty-handed. In the folder, there is a report on the investigation that was ordered to be carried out earlier. When it came to the cause of death of the first contender for the queen's place, it became clear that the murder was committed using poison. This tangle of events should have been tackled earlier. Then the thread would not have been irretrievably lost. The second bride was not poisoned. Something else happened to her. It would seem that Duncan could not have wanted to become related to the king so strongly. Evidence is required. Without it, the Duke can masterfully wriggle out of it. This is necessary for the future. They say there is a diary that Haley brought with her from the kingdom. The man is surprised because he hears about it for the first time. More details are needed. The maids found out everything. There are about 10 chapters in the notebook, and after arriving at the castle, she no longer writes anything in it, but sometimes just takes it to read. The knight asks if he should study the contents. Maybe he will be able to get some important information. The duchy hasn't been doing much lately. They seem to be laying low. Despite this, they still insist on reinstating Albert to the position from which he was removed. His Majesty is not sure what would be the right thing to do. It seems more logical to allow the Queen at least this. Such a small gesture. The young man tries to object. The gentleman does not want to become an impudent person who will try to read the diary of his beloved's youth. If this had happened before taking office, Nephrite would have yelled loudly, asking if life is worth any pride. Enough talk about the Duncan family has been had, which means it's time to go stretch his body a little. The knight begins to worry about the inhuman attraction the king feels for the queen. The annoying ghost knight appears again near Haley, asking why they don't want to talk to him. He doesn't understand whether he has really become as unattractive and old-fashioned as he is for the human world. With the last of her strength, the lady squeezes out a request. She does not want to talk. Leaving her alone means failure. He is interested in her. The answer is harsh. I am not interested in ghosts at all. A man likes a girl as a good person. He laughs when he sees how unhappy she is. He is not the one who is vindictive, but on the contrary, he is a keeper, and this is an honorable title. No matter who he is, because of people like him, the heroine has to participate in the afterlife. For someone who says that she is a completely ordinary person, the lady is creating too many problems for herself. The young man hits her where it hurts the most, and she doesn't like it at all. The knight continues to actively hang around nearby, thinking that his face is quite attractive. The girl says in a dissatisfied voice that she doesn't like younger men. Jade fights with his majesty, who is out of reach. The brunette calmly asks how the commander of the main knight squad can be weaker than the ruler, even though he trains hard. During the training, the man is completely exhausted, but will try to get better. The next round begins, from which Roderick comes out. He feels something, a strange energy that cannot be explained. Rushing forward, the hero follows the stream, trying to reach the source. The image of Haley before his eyes. For some reason, he remembers the words about the lady drowning in the river and falling into a coma. This was before the wedding. There is nothing near the lake. Going down lower, Blake looks around. In the distance, he sees shiny pink hair. He knows who is there. A small portrait of the king is drawn in the sand with a stick, and a thought comes to mind. I wonder why the spirit does not want to help the ruler, whether that person has committed a serious sin to deserve such suffering. The woman really wants to reveal the truth. She has never known anything before. Leaning a little closer, the knight clarifies one last time whether he should reveal all his cards, tell all the details of the story. Inside, the heroine had already imagined how she would learn more, learn what she needed. But then she was interrupted. She couldn't tell the truth because it was a mystery of nature. You must find out for yourself. The girl suffers only losses from talking to ghosts. Her grandmother also did not allow her granddaughter to cross a certain line. Her new life slowly begins to fall apart, and the ghost addresses Khan by her old name. There is nothing to be afraid of. She already died once. I want to be angry, but there is no point in being angry at the spirit. Roderick is visible in the distance. Vengeful souls are around him again. His face is restless. This is visible even from afar. Blue-eyed smiles. This time he will cleanse the spirits to leave the two more peaceful time. He steps forward and focuses his energy, which shines brightly. The man completely cleanses the king and jumps on his horse to fly into the air. It's strange that he is such a cheapskate and didn't help Roderick a little earlier. His Majesty is greeted with joy on his face. The young man does not leave his worries. He is interested in what the girl is doing in this place. Why she left the castle without warning anyone. He is so worried because there is water nearby. Smiling, the beauty asks if they put her in prison, since they do not allow her to go anywhere. Since she is a queen, then she can do anything, including spending time in Blake's bedroom. Haley is being playful again, not giving anyone a clue as to how to take her words. Another round of laughter erupts. She explains that she just went out for some air and didn't mean to jump into the lake. That would be stupid of her. The gaze drops to the sand. All this time, the queen was entertaining herself by drawing hapless pictures. There she also drew Roderick. It is hard to believe that she is interested in such things. A statement of fact. All of the wife's hobbies are extremely strange. It was time for Haley to ask about what the king had been doing. He nods when asked if he had been training with Jade. He would have to be thanked for fulfilling the request. It is surprising how the young man knew where the lady was, since he was in the training center. This cannot but raise unnecessary questions. He was attracted by the spirit or good energy. This is a wonderful trend. Once His Majesty has finished his work, he should go for a walk in the forest. The air there is magical. He must not miss the time for a walk, otherwise his condition will worsen again. It feels like the maiden is training an animal. Her behavior is incredibly sweet. The lady's character is different from how she was described in other people's stories. She was always completely innocent and quiet. Perhaps the beauty should act more like Duncan and not Kang Yi-jae, but in reality, the maiden had never communicated or joked like that with another person. She was too busy ignoring the ghosts that tried to talk to her. This is the biggest problem. It is fun to be around this person. He is made to feel things that he has never experienced before. The heroine again thought about why she had become silent. The king addressed her. He did not understand what had happened again, why she was silent. She could speak as and when she wanted. The girl has a request. When she has some free time, it would be nice to see a priest. And besides, she shouldn't neglect regular checkups with doctors. What's happening sounds like her wife's nagging. It's a lot of fun being in the doctor's company, but if you get too involved, it can become dangerous. The patient needs to develop his own habits, so it's better to go into the forest without Haley. She says her legs hurt. The king has no business being there, and he's forcing her to go. The two come to Arthur's forest. This place is filled with divine energy, and it makes one feel calm. Roderick becomes stronger just from being in the territory. Despite the positive influence, the situation is not so rosy. It is unlikely that he will be able to extract even half of the energy that is in the vengeful spirits. In a normal situation, he would not need the shaman's help at all. The king places his hand on the girl's knee and then rests his head there. A surprised exclamation is heard. After several unsuccessful attempts, the gentleman came to the conclusion that this is the best way to get a good night's sleep. It's all about hidden power, only he's not aware of it. The heroine doesn't consider herself a pillow. They don't agree with her. Such behavior almost looks like harassment, but the same can't be said about that time when they helped her tie her clothes. The conversation turns to marriage. If the king is not mistaken, Duncan does not like marriage at all. She declares that this is not so. How then to explain the fact that the spouses cannot allow themselves even innocent jokes? The lady, like her husband, has every right to say everything. With each word, the conversation becomes more interesting, takes on obvious branches. Most likely, each word will carry a ton of unnecessary nonsense. The brunette feels great, is incredibly comfortable in his arms. The relationship of the married couple is full of scandals, and various troubles are also present. They are far from normal, but still cozy. The idyll is broken when the gentleman announces that at the end of the month, as usual, there will be a hunting tournament. The woman screams in surprise and jerks sharply, hitting her head with her hands. In a pleading tone, the heroine asks him to somehow cancel the hunt. Killing animals is not allowed. He shrugs his shoulders. Last time he somehow managed to get out of it. This time, it seems, nothing will work out. He will have to participate. Duncan is against the cancellation. He wants the oats to take place. Thoughts about how to pull everything off start spinning in his head. The lady asks in a quiet voice why everything was canceled last year. The tour is essentially a gathering of high-ranking aristocrats. The young man does not go there alone, but under surveillance. Logically, he does not want to show other people his crazy side. It will not end well. The wife's look is incredibly sad. It seems that she understood the concerns after hearing just a few words. All the while hiding details about herself, she openly demonstrates her care. The idea of confessing to others that he was mad had never occurred to him, because the words coming from the king's mouth had such power that they could shake the entire kingdom. He could not speak the truth out loud without being branded a mad ruler. There are strange sensations inside, but they are pleasant. For some reason, it seems that if I tell the whole truth to my wife, it will become much easier. The problem with this impulse is that the girl was brought to the castle in order to probably monitor the actions. Haley is the enemy's daughter, and she can report absolutely all the information. But I would like to think that it will become easier if you show your weaknesses. The risks are great. The young man understands them perfectly. Despite everything, for the first time, he wants to share his experiences with another person. The hero begins to talk about the fact that the girl already guesses everything. Her eyes widen. He will not forget the fact that he is abnormal. His insides have long been consumed by dark energy. The young man is crumbling every day. He doesn't know what else he can do. Haley interrupts his majesty. She is calm. No need. This is not true. Her hand falls over her eyes, covering them with her fingers. The heroine continues. She is sure that she cannot say anything about what is happening. Roderick is not at all crazy or a broken man. The words once again confirm that the lady is truly a good person. You can say exactly that about her without saying anything. Blake feels incredible relief, as if a heavy stone has fallen from his soul. The conversation turns to hunting again. If Roderick does go hunting, since he has no choice, his wife will tie a scarf around his neck. He nods and sincerely thanks her. He won't refuse that. A few days later, His Majesty is in the hall with the aristocrats. He is asked if there will be a hunting tournament. Duncan is the first to speak up. He is interested in whether the master is feeling well, but this is not a concern. The faithful servant simply expresses his thoughts. The blue-eyed one cannot understand how such a vile person could have such a beautiful daughter like Haley. Such a sensitive person is still hard to find. They are similar only in appearance. It is infuriating. Jade is asked to hand over the documents. The young man feels irritation that is gradually growing. He urgently needs to release his anger, because the situation will only get worse. An anonymous complaint appears on the table, which talks about the difference between the actual income from the estates and the taxes that were presented to the king. Perhaps it would be better to conduct an investigation. It is incredibly curious what the problem is. Previously, the man loudly declared that the queen's honor was the most important thing to him, and even hinted at reinstating his son in office. The latest warning was to stop denigrating Haley with antics that are not at all on par with her. The gentleman is a patient man. He turns a blind eye to many things. In return, he asks you to stop using your patience. I am giving you one last chance. Correct yourself and try again. The hunting competition will go ahead as scheduled. The marriage has been a success. My body feels wonderful. Duncan has noticed changes. Roderick is less emotional and less vulnerable, and a favorable position has gone down the drain. It's night outside. Haley is busy carving wood. The man has had a good night's sleep. First, he yelled at Duncan Sr., and then calmly basked in his daughter's bed. She couldn't refuse him. The man looks closely at what his wife is carving. Besides the small, round figures themselves, she is scratching something on them. No one knows that she is trying to fix her rosary. She needs to replace the stones before the bracelet completely falls apart. The beauty turns on the acceleration mode, is so busy that she pays absolutely no attention to anything. The questionnaire stated that her main interest is fashion. The bracelet does not really look like an accessory. The report was compiled by Nephrite. He was mistaken. After listening, Duncan calmly explains that she is not doing all this for the sake of beauty. She is concentrating for discipline. It strengthens the spirit. She finishes by patting the bed. They call her to lie down. The Chamberlain and the Knight are not going to leave. Deborah herself understands that this is wrong, so she drags them away. After that time in Arthur's forest, the young man comes to sleep in his wife's room every free minute. It is calmer and safer there. It's quite late. It seems he's going to spend the night. Strange thoughts creep into his head about what he might want. Approaching, the gentleman moves the lady to the bed. If it's uncomfortable, I'll sleep on the sofa. You can sleep peacefully. Feeling ashamed, it's awkward to drive away a man who has finally found a suitable place for a peaceful sleep. The woman turns to the man and asks him to lie down next to her. It will be better that way. The young man jokingly asks how he could even be allowed to think about sleeping on the sofa. Sometimes he says things that are too absurd. The blue-eyed man can't help but laugh, because he is being told that the bed and the room do not belong to him. The brunette changes his mood. He turns over, ending up on top. He asks if the beauty knows what adults do when they stay in the same bed. Perhaps it's time for us to do it too. Haley fell silent. She couldn't come to her senses. They were talking to her calmly. What had been said earlier was nothing more than a joke. She could always refuse if something was wrong. Virgo doesn't reveal the truth. She also wants to try, but it's impossible to force herself to say it out loud. They won't pressure her. It's clear that she needs a little time. Mental preparation is an important part. It is known that the lady was so in love with one man that she even decided to throw herself into the river before the wedding of convenience. Her lover, Sir Lawrence, would be at the hunting tournament. Irvine's name is quite well known. People have heard of him before. He is a famous royal swordsman. Before the engagement, the king did not pay much attention to him. It is worth rereading the report on the biography of his wife. The man intends to get to know the girl better, because she herself will not tell the details. His eyes run over the written lines. 5 minutes later, a scream is heard. They call Jade. Haley's dossier was compiled by a knight. There is not a single truthful word in it. There is no mention of her passion for wood carving and her strange tastes. Not a single word at all. The diet is also wrong. They say that the lady prefers sweets, but with Roderick, she eats only grass. Her diet is like that of a bird. And if the dish turns out to be salted, the woman immediately refuses to eat and leaves. Blue-Eyed had the chance to compare what was in the report and how it actually is. The report was indeed written incorrectly. He had turned a blind eye to what was happening for a long time, but the work was generally incompetent. They'll have to do it all over again and submit a new version of the report. The deadline is set until the end of the hunting season. For some reason, Roderick is incredibly angry about what's happening. He sincerely wants to believe Haley. Reality constantly makes him doubt. Nephrite is asked to keep an eye on the mistress. She, as usual, sent the servants away and wanders around the lake. If something happens to her, they will definitely be in trouble. She cannot be allowed to jump into the water. The days go by quickly. The woman has found something to do. A spirit appears out of nowhere. He greets her, making her jump in surprise. The first impression passes. The anger stage begins. Why didn't you show up earlier? I've been looking for you all week. It's hard to find and easy to lose. Even though the young man knows everything, he asks unnecessary questions. Not understanding why they were looking for him, his help is needed. The queen wants to accompany her husband during the hunt. He needs someone to look after him. Smiling, the hero tries to find out what he will get in return. They will give him anything, but without risking his life and all kinds of injuries. In response, he jokes, "Aren't you ready to give your life for your loved one?" What was said definitely does not coincide with reality. The spirit does not understand what the feelings that the girl has for the king are. It is probably love. She just cannot admit it to herself. The calm answer is striking. The girl is merciful and feels a drop of compassion for her husband. The knight thinks, in fact, for now, he does not need anything. But everything can change. It takes a few seconds before he changes his mind. They can try dating. And if they go further, they will do what Haley imagined. Blushing, she screams that it didn't happen, and the perfume is not to her taste. Blue-Eyed can't stop mocking. Duncan mentioned her love for older guys, and he just turned 500. The lady clarifies whether this is really the only condition. It's too early to rejoice, because this is not consent. Kang Yujie feels lost. It's not that hard to explain. Relationships are much more amazing than she imagines, especially if you enter into them with a loved one. It's a human prerogative to fill relationships with meaning and find happiness in them. It's definitely not a bridge to the afterlife. You shouldn't get too hung up on such things. The beauty is still very young, and she's filling her head with nonsense. It's worth enjoying earthly life while you can. She already said that nothing will work out. There is no benefit from the moralizing of a dead man, even if he lived a long, adventurous life. Shrugging, the man says he has no intention of helping the mortal. Pointing his finger at her head, he asks why Haley doesn't even think with her head. The deal could very well ruin her life. It's lucky that the spirit is kind. If there were others in the castle who were similar to him, they would definitely have picked up the idea. He's right, but he doesn't understand that the situation is critical. The shaman's strength is no longer sufficient. Previously, the queen tried to embroider a protective scarf, but it didn't turn out very well. It had zero effect, and it seemed strange to give it away. She had too little strength, and several more similar items would be needed for the desired effect. The woman has put a lot of effort into her work, has given herself completely to it. She spent several nights praying, and still is not sure that she will be able to protect Roderick with only her own strength. He's nothing but trouble. There was no need to even ask, to give extra hope, since the man was aware of everything from the very beginning. Raising his voice, the acquaintance asks if he misheard, or if he really does cause nothing but trouble. It's wrong to cling to words, the girl joked, because it's not easy for her at all. If he was offended, the lady can only ask for forgiveness. Kang Yiji is a wandering man. Remember, and don't forget what I told you. You need to enjoy life. The ghost disappears without even saying goodbye. He didn't want to help with anything except one piece of advice. There is very little time left before the tournament. Despite the fact that the scarves are of little help, he will have to speed up. Getting up from the ground, Haley feels strange. Her head starts to spin. Over the past few days, she has lost a lot of strength. Deborah was asked not to follow in her footsteps. Her help might be needed. The body falls unconscious. The king arrives to his wife as early as possible, he shouts, asking if she wants to give him a heart attack. Hiding under the blanket, she says that it happened by accident. Jade found the lady unconscious and carried her on his back. Haley apologizes for her father. She knows that he has gone crazy again. It was not painful. The doctor visited a little earlier and explained that it was just dizziness. She can soon get out of bed and continue her activities. The brunette won't let her get up. He reminds her that sometimes it can be useful to try and count how many times something like this has happened since the wedding. This is definitely not the first time. Anything can make a lady faint. The virgin will not die if she stops hiding her condition. Words of forgiveness are heard for all the troubles caused. Stroking her head, Roderick asks not to talk nonsense. I understand that you were against our marriage. Khan wasn't against it. Almost, she doesn't hate her husband. She treats him normally. Blake asks about his name, because he doesn't even believe that the beauty remembers it. Before saying the full name, Duncan blushes. For some reason, she feels completely awkward about what is happening. She wants to cover herself with a blanket in order to completely hide from the piercing gaze. The girl did this for the first time, and it caused warmth to spread throughout her body. The young man could be called simply Roderick. He didn't mind. The lady thanked him, but still wanted to call him by his status. The heroine covers herself with a blanket. She cannot answer the question of why she is hiding. She squeezes out something about the need to keep her distance. It's hard to hold back. The closer they get, the more you want to help. Haley finally gets the man going. She has a real gift for touching a person with just one phrase. The blue-eyed man begins to acknowledge what is happening. It seems that he really likes her. He is irritated when his wife makes every effort to distance herself as much as possible. Sometimes the girl smiles, and this lifts her spirits. She looks like a fox. It seems like she has already met one like this in the forest. The beauty immediately turns around. All these words are definitely flattering her. Being a shaman, she knows that foxes have an incredibly powerful gift of seducing men. Even in their world, such skills are considered top-notch. The king clarifies that this was not a compliment. He meant something else. Quietly looking at the ceiling, the girl begins to speak. She asks if the young man will go hunting. She clarifies whether it is possible to cancel everything or whether nothing can be done. Her gaze becomes increasingly sadder. The blue-eyed man looks at her with displeasure. The lady is back at it. You have to love animals too much to feel so sorry for them. Nothing can be done, so it's better to be careful with water and knives because he won't be able to keep an eye on them. The spirit didn't help, And the handkerchiefs are useless. No amount of them helps at all. It's scary to think that everything from last time will repeat itself. Haley clarifies whether it will be possible to cancel the tournament if the man breaks his arm, or both. The beauty suggests breaking her leg too. The young man can't stand it and starts laughing. He can't believe that they're going to break something for him personally. Jade isn't going to do that either, which means there's no way to avoid the hunt. There are no other options left except to give a scarf. The girl is asked if she is serious because it all becomes funny. She nods. There is every chance of an attack happening. It is better to be on the safe side. Blue Eyes is once again convinced that Haley is still in love with Lawrence. The king is unable to understand his feelings. He would like to understand why this bothers him so much, because this is completely wrong. They distract me from my thoughts. There is no point in wanting the scarf so much. It is absolutely useless. It is not clear why I am saying such a thing. The hero asks me to say it directly if the lady does not want to give a gift. It turns out to be unfair, because the girl herself proposed, and then refused. Before the last hunt, she was also offered something, and then they changed their minds. The brunette lies down next to her. Okay, that's enough, by the way. With your words, you deeply hurt me. The queen asks her not to suspect. So be it. She will give a handkerchief. It becomes clear that she is lying again and not telling everything. The report that was transmitted by Jade was truly a complete horror, not corresponding with reality. It's normal to hide something, but you should try to do it at least not so openly. Sometimes she is too transparent. The beauty screams so that no one suspects her. It seems that her thoughts have been read. The finger points to the table in the room. There are many handkerchiefs there. It seemed that Haley is a very reserved person. Apparently, this only applies to her husband. The style of accessories is also unique. She undermined her health due to the fact that she was actively making things. Initially, it would have been more logical to give an existing scarf, and not one that would be made from scratch. You only have to look closely to see the countless calluses on her fingers. Even if it is not rational, the young man experiences a certain joy that cannot be explained in words. The wife tries to keep her promise, not to change her words, even despite the fatigue she feels. The sheer number of items is inexplicable, but it doesn't matter. The heroine is calmed down. He sees everything that is there, which means he can finally breathe a sigh of relief. His complexion is not good. The scarves can be given to anyone. I will not complain. It's nice that Roderick is seriously considering the idea of his wife giving away her creations to someone else. Everything made will be given to the king, and he is not allowed to know about it, at least until the tournament begins. Haley is lost in her thoughts again. The young man asks if it will be okay if she puts her hand under her head. This is a little confusing, however, it is not forbidden. They are husband and wife. For family rights, it is normal. Haley doesn't know what's right, how she should behave. She's never been in a relationship before. The brunette says that she can't feel her hand. The blood flow has stopped. It's better to move closer. Both are blushing. What's happening is felt on a different level. The man can't admit to himself that he's glad the fact that the girl has never done this with anyone. They ask him, "Are you really going to sleep here?" He's skeptical, asking if they'll send him to the couch. They've decided to stay together, and it's impossible to change their minds. Haley assures him that won't happen. She didn't say anything like that and might get angry. Duncan can get angry too, she starts screaming. Not only the king has his dark side. The laughter gets louder. The girl is too sweet, and it must be admitted, she is really funny, a pleasant conversationalist. Still, the lady really doesn't know how to get angry. She always keeps to herself, as if she could leave at any moment. Sometimes she seems strange, lonely, and sad. He runs his fingers over his cheek. She is so beautiful because of the Duke, because of his constant bullying and beatings in childhood. It is logical that the father could probably take advantage of the fact that his daughter is small and has no vulnerabilities, and he did not immediately appeal to her. We have to talk about what came over the king, and he, in response, asks about what happens to Haley on a regular basis, why she constantly looks at the lake and thinks about death. The problem is that it is impossible to lay all the cards on the table. The girl does not think about death. I wonder if a problem really did arise. Would her husband want to try to solve it? To definitely fix everything? He will do everything in his power to make sure everything is good in the life of the young lady. She is his wife, after all. It is known that marriage was a forced decision, but it is strange to be so tender. Haley has never experienced such a thing before. All the looks, all the little gestures, all the kind words, all of this makes the heart flutter. At first, it seemed that the feelings would pass, but they became stronger and stronger, and it became clear that a fragile relationship was what I wanted to achieve. The woman does not want to stop, even if she has to pay a great price someday. Thanks to the king, the girl received a feeling of warmth that she had never received before. She does not want to answer, so it is better to go to rest. The young man will represent a pillow. He could also be a blanket, but it would be better not to, otherwise the body would be crushed by its weight. They wish the gentleman good night. May you have only good dreams. Time flies by very quickly. The day of the hunting tournament arrives, an event completely different. This year, it was organized on a grand scale, around a tent, a cart with huge luggage. There are a lot of people. They all want to see the events. His Majesty looks busy while he communicates with the servants, giving them the correct instructions, which they follow. Deborah helps the lady get ready. The charming yellow dress makes her smile. As soon as Roderick sees her in this outfit, he will have the strength to win the upcoming event. The feelings the lady has about the future clearly show that she does not want to win. There is no point in it. It would be better if the man took the last place. Otherwise, the lady will have to deal with the consequences. The servants will escort His Majesty and his retinue, and then return to the castle. Everything will begin soon. So the moment has come to hand over 3 small magic scarves into the hands of the husband, which will try to protect him. I wanted to take more, but the maid dissuaded me. The gentleman is informed that Haley has come out. She is so small that he cannot see her figure. Only the familiar top of her head is visible in the distance. Lawrence Irvine is standing next to the horse. It seems he noticed his beloved. She hurries forward, asking Deborah where her husband is. They help her find him, not go too far, and ask her not to jump. The girl makes her way through the crowd and smiles. Greeting, they easily make fun of her. It is hard to live with such a short stature. It is difficult to hear what they are saying. The distance between them is too great. The air has changed since the heroine came closer. It seems like they want to compliment her, but due to shyness, nothing happens. There is a new handkerchief in her hands. An amulet against evil spirits should help. The inscriptions on them are a spell that is made for good luck and a spell against bad karma. Many scarves were embroidered, but only a few were brought. The whole cloud was for him. He is very important after all. It would be interesting to know why there are 3 pieces at once. It's better to imagine that all this is for 3 years in advance. It's more convenient that way. They're trying to compensate for the quality, which isn't very good, with quantity. The gentleman carefully holds everything that was given to him. In response, one wants to ask what to bring from the hunt. The lady is not interested in any things. The words are incomprehensible, because there are no men in the world who do not bring anything to their wives. It turns out that Roderick is stupid. Since he doesn't bring anything, he feigns displeasure, noting that he won't let something like this go in one ear and out the other. The woman acts as if she doesn't want the gentleman to win. This time, it won't be just a hunting trip, but a real competition. Everyone present has their own fight. Each of them, most of all, wants to win. Be it he is a different person, they would wish him luck. But as it is, it seems like something unreal. Killing animals can have a negative impact on his condition and provoke vengeful spirits, which is not desirable. Virgo may advise being a little more gentle so as not to hurt his pride. In the end, she won't do this. The young man sits on the throne, undoubtedly. The master has his own motives that are incomprehensible, but it will not be possible to interfere with this. The girl doesn't try to change anything. She gives in. She won't try to dissuade him from participating or not to kill anymore, in this case. She wants her husband to return safe and sound. It's not clear what's going on in her head. A familiar voice is heard. Lawrence comes forward and addresses the queen. He was Haley's lover. The body cannot control itself. Tears flow from the eyes. The girl experiences pain and bitterness. Something is happening. The maiden's memories have come flooding back in a huge wave that can no longer be stopped. People are watching. She needs to take back control so as not to embarrass herself. The king will be put in an awkward position by his wife bursting into tears. It happened at the sight of a former lover. The situation could not be worse. The young man jumps down and hugs Duncan, asks if she is okay. The lady cries and apologizes for this, as if she had committed a mortal sin. The hero reassures that the lady is so small that about 30 people noticed her tears. In any case, the lady covered her face immediately. She is much smarter than it might seem at first glance. 30 people is also not a trifle. Sometimes everything that is said is nothing more than nonsense. It seems that the girl feels better. She is allowed to wipe her face on her clothes and even her nose. although she declares that she will not do this under any circumstances. People assume that the two are so deeply in love that they can't bear to be apart even for a few days, and Roderick is so supportive that you can tell how happy Haley is to be married. The young man has already said that everything is perfectly fine. He doesn't need to be told twice. He needs to somehow divert attention from what happened. He reaches out to the girl. The blame lies with Haley's father, but she is also involved in this. The excuse about control is quite convincing. Bending down to his face, the gentleman gently kisses the beauty. He thinks that she will move away, but she, on the contrary, reaches closer to be even closer. A stupid smile involuntarily appears on her face. Blue Eyes decides to finally sort everything out. In fact, he did it not to distract attention, but because he wanted it. The time comes to start the tournament. Duncan wants him to be more careful and come back soon. His Majesty said that nothing terrible had happened. But in fact, he had protected the girl, doing it so simply, without asking anything. The girl felt guilty before him and wanted to thank him somehow. For the first time, it becomes clear what is going on inside. The feelings belong to Kang Yi-jae and not to the former owner of the body. So this time, it is much easier to carry out what was planned. The young man smiles. The lady is back with her oddities, but it doesn't bother him at all. That's how it should be. The queen wants to give away some valuable thing, but then she won't be able to do anything herself because she will have nothing left. The heroine feels awkward. She squeezes out something about how she would like to get the bracelet back when she returns from hunting. It seems that the rosary is not enough for a simple expression of gratitude. It is the most that can be achieved in life. The brunette prefers to leave all the worries behind. He experiences an obsessive feeling that he wants to kiss the beauty again. The time comes. The queen says a prayer to herself. May he return home, safe and sound. Night falls. The squad makes a halt. His Majesty is completely dissatisfied, suggesting that it would be better to shoot Jade. He is not having a fit of madness. These are thoughts out loud that do not carry any meaning. However, Haley and Lawrence had true love. The Duke fiercely opposed this. Duncan wanted to make his daughter a queen from the birth of his daughter, so he forbade any relationships with other men. The gentleman is not sure that in such a situation he should be grateful to the Duke. The report stated that it was not the girl who initiated it. It happened when there was talk of a marriage of convenience. They could not meet secretly. The only thing that interests the gentleman is why the woman did not leave her lover first, because it is completely wrong. No matter how you look at it, Haley is better than a knight. Sir Lawrence is truly an incredible man. He is the best swordsman in Cayenne. He has a great future, and in terms of swordsmanship, he is better than Nephrite and Roderick. I remember the confused face of the maiden when she cried. The more you learn, the stranger Haley seems. She opened up a little and then closed herself off again, hiding away from everyone else. The knight asks if the lord really likes the queen so much. It's likely that the lady doesn't care about all these thoughts at all. There's only one piece of advice. Try to get to know her better. Just push her a little, and everything will fall apart. Duncan knows that no one trusts her. Jade can't give good advice. After all, it is about being a little softer, but this will directly hurt pride. Roderick has his own motives. They are not clear to anyone else. Nephrite is asked to hunt. Doing this in place of the king, he has already caught one deer. That is enough. He has caught more than Albert, so if the Duke asks for a promotion again, he will be able to refer to this. The best hunter in Cayenne is obliged to catch as much game as he can, but there must be more than Lawrence has. The young man is not sure that he will succeed. He will have to try. The king is interested in what his wife is doing. The next day dawns. The spirit is near Ija. The lady is busy. Everything is for Roderick. If a person of noble birth descends to earth, then, wherever he is, nothing sinister will dare to harm him. There are pleasant feelings inside that make you understand. Prayers are much easier than before. Harsh conditions definitely contribute to growth, as my grandmother used to say. Life teaches better than any teacher. Meditation is over. Now I have to turn to my to-do list. Of all the things I've written, reading the first Haley's diary is the most tedious and terrible. The hunting competition is not over. It's the 5th day. Jade does what he was ordered. Everyone around admires him. He is a real monster. Roderick examines the queen's gifts. Each of them has some kind of engraving. Some of the patterns are the same, but most of the designs are different. And each bead on the bracelet has different characters written on it, which really took a long time. They approach the gentleman. A squirrel has been caught in a homemade trap. He snorts. asking if things are so bad that they have to catch rodents. They say that fur coats made from animal skins are in fashion. It seems like a good idea to take them away as a hunting trophy. His Majesty gets up and approaches the trap. The baby squeals even louder. He needs to decide whether it's worth letting him go or whether there's no point. The squirrel's look is heartbreaking. It's not so easy to understand whether he's asking for help or trying to run away. The image of Haley comes to mind, who is just as lonely as this little animal. The decision is made within a few seconds. The man wants to take this little one to the queen as a present. Jade is ordered to make a cage. A fur coat will not be ordered. Duncan does not care about fashion trends. It is better to bring the rodent alive. Only a few days remain, and they will be able to meet again. The king thinks about this with warmth. One of the diary pages is dated March 11th. Haley writes how Lawrence tries to console her in every possible way. He tells her not to be upset because he will become a royal knight, and they will be able to see each other sometimes. She knew that nothing would work out. It seems that the girl has turned into an evil spirit. Her resentment was too deep to find peace. If the soul is still inside, you want to help her at least a little so that the situation improves. You need to go to the river in which the girl disappeared. The heroine feels doomed. The tournament is almost over, and she hasn't really read anything yet. Because of the emotions of the body's previous owner, Kang Yi-jae constantly feels sick when reading pages, which makes it harder and the process slows down. In another entry, dated September 10th, Haley writes that her father is going to do something terrible. She promises herself that she will try to talk him out of it, but she is not sure if she will succeed. And besides, she does not want to get slapped again. It will hurt. My head is in disarray. I can't figure out what Duncan was planning to do. From the diary entries, I can see that the heroine often tried to understand the man, to establish a relationship with him. She was a kind child, but she had bad luck with her parents. Those who decide to abandon their children and those who abuse children are equally terrible. It turns out that the girls had an unenviable marriage, and the little girl was subjected to physical abuse from early childhood. In the last part of the diary, about a month before death, nothing is written. It is difficult to say what happened, since there are no memories of that time left in my head. There is a feeling of memories of Haley's childhood. The later years of childhood are completely blurred. People usually have the opposite. They only don't remember what happened in the early years of life. I would like to understand how this is connected. The commander is praised for his achievements. The king is only concerned that they will definitely get ahead of Lawrence and Duncan. Nothing bothers him. He feels great. He just didn't manage to get enough sleep. But he should have gotten used to this by now. There were no attacks during the tournament. The gentleman always splashed out his emotions on the hunt. But this time, he decided to kill only one deer. A snake crawls out onto the road. It is huge in size and also poisonous, which means that one drop of poison is capable of killing an entire horse. It is killed. There is very little time left before leaving the forest. The closing ceremony will be in the evening. The horses are left near the entrance to the tents. His Majesty notices a figure in the distance. It is familiar to him. It becomes clear that it is Haley. Blue-Eyed rushes to meet her and picks her up in his arms. As he greets her, the lady is doing well. She is glad that her husband returned safely. The embroidered scarves came in handy, and the prayers were not in vain. The attack did not happen. Perhaps this is just Roderick's destiny, but it's still good that the girl did everything possible, tried her best to soften the blow. The brunette holds out a squirrel. It is wrapped in cloth. It was impossible to hide the surprise in her voice. They had brought her an animal that was used to living in the wild, and a sudden change in environment could even kill it. The squirrel had gotten caught in a trap and couldn't leave it there, so they had to rescue it. The man explains that he wanted to show her the animal. She was destined to die, but was lucky enough to meet a benefactor, which means he will have to take her away. Refusing the gift is wrong. The baby bit when they tried to touch him. Everything changed next to Haley. Climbing onto the shoulder, she makes a joyful sound. It seems that the sacred energy is calming. The young man returns the rosary too. Joy is reflected on her face. The beauty sincerely thanks her. It seems that the lady is happier with the bracelet than with the arrival of her loved one. The squirrel squeaks and hides in the hair of its new owner. You can feel the dark energy coming from somewhere below. You have to ask the question if the man killed the snake. The answer is yes, and this is sad. Haley asked not to kill living creatures. Things are bad. All shamans know that snakes are creatures full of hatred. Even if you cut off their heads, they continue to move for some time. Being in a long death throes, they remember the one who killed them. The heroine can't stand reptiles, but she'll have to figure it out. It's better for one of her subjects to finish off the snake. The young man tries to explain. The situation was critical. The reptile wanted to bite the horse. What else was I supposed to do? The girl thinks that it would have been possible to reach the castle on foot, which is why a genuine surprise appears on her face. There are indefinable circumstances. That's life. Khan can't come to terms with it. Everything is ultimately resolved by force. Haley screams and jumps up. She sees energy. The hunting tournament is coming to an end. As expected, Jade beat all the participants in the competition. He was given a wreath as a reward for first place. He would like to get a vacation, but the king refused him. The squirrel settled in a tree near the lake. She really liked it there. Roderick was in safe territory. Yija finally breathed a sigh of relief. The remaining scarves were given to the spirit. It seemed that peaceful days had arrived. Despite everything, the girl was still tormented by anxiety. It did not leave her consciousness. She could not go beyond the protective circle of her room because she was afraid of running into a reptile. Roderick's condition was not being checked. This could cause problems. His Majesty suddenly opens his eyes. He was sitting in the office and was busy with documents and is already lying on the bed. Just as he wants to ask what is there, Haley comes closer. The morning after the hunting competition ended, the young man could not figure out whether his wife was disgusted by his face or the snakes. He felt sad about it, as if a knife had been drawn through his heart. Jade is tired of watching the gentleman suffer. He advises her to gather courage and come up to ask the question directly. But no one listens to him, and in her head, she only thinks about how Duncan feels hatred. The process of catching reptiles is an unpleasant thing, it must be admitted. It is better to remain silent. The Knights of Cayenne, who are considered the most skilled in the whole world, cannot catch a reptile. The captain's responsibility falls on the shoulders of the captain to train them again. I can't get the girl's face out of my head the moment she saw Lawrence. It's not clear how this happened. They can't sleep in the same bed, despite the fact that they are married, as Haley said. The responsibility for the marriage lies with Roderick and Duncan Sr. The days go by, something changes. The constant inability to concentrate on work begins to noticeably disturb. Nephrite sees that the king has not slept for days. Soon he will reach his limit. It is time for heavy artillery. The voices in his head grow louder. They beg and push him to kill. After a long time, they appeared again. The reason is unknown. Only next to the queen, the master feels calm. He loses consciousness, throwing her body on his shoulders. They carry the body into the room. The brunette blushes, because the situation turned out to be ambiguous. The assistant threw him to Haley. Something strange happens again. The air changed, and even the damned voice also died down. The face turns even redder. It feels like the head has completely gone crazy. The touch of the lady is incredibly soft. The blue-eyed man, with a hint of reproach, says that he has not slept for several days. He needed to be visited. The woman was afraid to come. It was embarrassing that His Majesty almost had a fit. He asks to visit more often. There is no need to take a pillow. There are two on the bed. They can sleep together. The girl thinks. The king's chambers are not that far from hers, so she will have to look there at least once. Just to understand everything, this item was even on the to-do list. The body is incredibly light. The eyes are gradually closing. It is still unclear whether Haley has some kind of special magic. In the books, it is written that about 400 years ago, some kind of magic existed on the continent. Most people consider this a mere myth. However, the existence of such a practice is an indisputable fact, recorded in the royal annals located in a closed library. The Duncans had magicians in their family, so she could have inherited the ability to cast spells. Haley is asked if she studied magic, or if she was perhaps training to become a priestess, and the answer is a calm denial. With all their hearts, they wish the gentleman a speedy recovery. Maybe that's what works so well, Roderick asks again, because there's no point in avoiding the answer. He's curious. It's natural. He had to suffer alone. Roderick didn't think that one day he would be with someone who could give him relief. The woman will not reveal anything, because she does not want to seem strange. In this case, you can use me when you are difficult and bad. They are in a relationship. Marriage is the most special union. There is no point in talking about exploitation. It is unacceptable, the blue-eyed one clarifies. Is it really true that he is more comfortable in company alone? Of course, it is not so. The queen likes spending time together. The woman says one thing and does another. She constantly moves away, looking him straight in the eye. The gentleman asks if they can kiss again. There are mixed feelings inside, confusion. She clarifies why this is necessary, because for now, she is trying to do everything in her power. It was all a joke, but the refusal hurt feelings. The heroine thinks for a second and decides to fulfill the request. She leans down and kisses him on the cheek. The king's face almost immediately turns red. He does not understand whether he really deserved it. The young man jumps up and screams. The girl is definitely behaving like a fox. If there was such an opportunity, he would look under her clothes. Hands reach for Duncan's waist and pull him closer. He asks to try again. He wants to be sure of something again, something that can't be said out loud. He wants to be sure of his feelings, to understand why, when the beauty cried, he wanted to kiss her. The woman looks away. She feels a new level of embarrassment. Turning around, she nods. She has no right to refuse. The two merge in a warm, tender kiss. Every touch seems special. The breathing becomes heavier. Roderick quietly asks that they clasp hands, because his hands might reach where they definitely don't belong. His Majesty asks for a handshake in an unusual way, which is even a little funny. A gentleman can do anything just to hold his wife's hand. The kiss becomes hotter, the sensations intensify, and something inside makes him flutter. For some reason, the kiss is different from the previous one that happened before the hunt. The man is noticeably in a hurry. This already looks like some kind of debauchery, and this option is not the best. I will have to stop because this cannot continue. The girl steps back and asks if the king is convinced of the correctness of his intentions. He himself did not notice how strongly he became attached to the one who became everything to him. Nodding, the young man says that he is convinced of everything. There is a bit of uneasiness in her soul. The lady feels uncomfortable. It is strange that they are still looking at her like that. It seems that the gentleman wants to continue, to move to the next level of their relationship. The question is unexpected and confusing. I want to know if it was serious between her and Lawrence. My heart beats faster. Perhaps it was serious, but it's all in the past. Feelings dissipate. It's natural when time goes by faster. I don't want to force Haley to do something that she's not entirely comfortable with. Once she forgets about Lawrence, everything will be resolved finally. The best suggestion is to discuss the relationship when the situation has improved at least a little. The man offers to use his arm as a pillow. A refusal is heard, which seems logical. The heroine does not intend to cause problems. The blue-eyed man asks not to say stupid things. The lady should understand for herself what exactly he is leading to. This is just an excuse to get closer. In the future, they will be together all the time, so the lady has the right to take any pose she wants. The girl needs to prepare herself mentally. Other wishes are not so important. It is known that Roderick wants to reduce the distance, which is already great. It is scary to imagine that he will hate Yija. Everyone who got close to her sooner or later reached this stage. It will be problematic to endure what can happen. It would be better if the gentleman wasn't so kind. This is unusual. This has never happened before. The young man notices that there is silence again. He begins to tickle, which immediately makes the heroine laugh. Stop, I forgot what I wanted to say. The woman herself did not notice how she accidentally fell asleep. She opens her eyes, not quite understanding how long she slept. She is awakened by an unpleasant feeling. A dark spirit is visible in the distance, and she immediately tries to get out of bed. Freedom comes after a few minutes of hard work. The lady makes a clever escape. Just like in the movies, there is a drunken demon nearby who constantly follows His Majesty. He will have to be kicked out. It will be easy. Lowering her voice, the lady orders you to stop talking nonsense and get out of here quickly. She is capable of much, and therefore gives you a final warning. If you come near Roderick, I will destroy you. He leaves. It was a relief. The girl pretended to know everything. While she couldn't really do anything, to solve the main problem, you either need to illuminate everything around or start destroying the evil spirits. The grandmother never told the details, but Roderick wants to help. We'll have to deal with the situation gradually. The lady wants to give him the opportunity to sleep peacefully, so that, like any normal person, he won't experience any problems. The most urgent things will come first. The spirit wakes up and asks what Ija is doing. She tries to take the amulets down. He screams, because this cannot be done under any circumstances. Evil ghosts are heading into the room, only this time, they will fight with them. Stand until the very end. Over time, the power of the fallen snake's anger and revenge grows, so it appears first, as if out of nowhere, it becomes more ferocious. The woman got carried away because, having seen the spirit, she understands that she cannot cope. She sets her sights on His Majesty. The situation can't be allowed to escalate. The girl rushes forward, screaming that she won't let him pass. It gets even worse. The reptile's body wraps around, touching her hands. The disgusting sensations do not give her peace. And Jay needs help from her friend. Without him, she definitely can't cope. He goes down the slippery scales. Almost immediately, the heroine asks what he is going to do next. The strength begins to weaken. It becomes clear that the baby is trying to do everything possible to help. The lady is not at all afraid of the snake. She simply has psychological trauma that prevents her from moving forward. She steps over herself. The technique is activated. Fire exorcism. EJ brings himself to the limit. All that remains is to exert himself a little, to forget about his grievances. The spirit that came into the world is obliged to return to the world of shadows. It becomes quieter. It seems like everything worked out. This cannot but please. Finally, she can breathe a sigh of relief. The lady hopes that she won't die anytime soon because she's made too many enemies. It's all over, and it's time to get a good night's sleep again. In the morning, His Majesty wakes up. He immediately asks how the queen slept, the lady nods, and at the same time asks to take her legs off. They are too heavy, it makes it harder to breathe. Blue-Eyed is surprised. He can't help but notice the pale complexion. If you think about it, last night Haley slept on one side and woke up on the other. Did I really toss and turn so aggressively in my sleep? The brunette sincerely hopes that this is not the only issue. Roderick asks if the girl really disliked the kiss. Perhaps she was forced into it, and that was the biggest mistake. The lady sits up in bed and stares into space. She wants to ask His Majesty for one request. There are tears in her eyes. She asks that, next time, if possible, not to kill the snake. Murder blackens the soul. That time, everything happened quickly. But if there was a choice, everything would be different. There is a very interesting expression in Chinese. Achieve a goal by using the strength of others. The gentleman has Jade, who will do absolutely everything for him. This is the first time a girl is so angry, I have to agree. I understand. Just don't shout. During the reign of Ryan Blake, the Kingdom of Guyana celebrated its centenary since its founding. As a sign of eternal harmony and peace, the noble houses, of which there were 3, were accepted into the royal family. The true purpose of the family is to protect it from the influence of all 3 families. At the next meeting, Duncan raises the same issue, asking to consider again the possibility of reinstating his son as commander. He knows that he will most likely be refused, but it is still worth trying. Blue Eyes grins. As he promised Nephrite, he will mention his winnings. The Duke's son was unable to shoot even half of the game that the knights of the squad collected. He has such skills that his personality is forgotten quite quickly. The aristocrat changes the subject. He mentions that he requested an audience with Her Majesty the Queen to discuss this matter with her, but he was refused twice, which is considered completely unacceptable. It irritates him. Duncan won't go down without a fight. After all, he is Haley's father. No matter how much they disagree on matters of state, it's too much to deprive a legal parent of the right to see his child. His voice keeps rising until the king silences him. A man rarely shows his character in such a way. He seemed to have previously asked not to speak badly about his wife, but from the words that were said, one can conclude that she does not have her own opinion, only the opinion of her father. In fact, no matter what the Duke says, Roderick does not dictate refusals. The gentleman winces. What is happening is more like delirium. Haley does not have her own opinion. She will not dare to utter a peep without permission to do so. He suffered for a long time to teach her to obey. The king does not advise forcing him to repeat the same thing. He did not deprive him of any rights. A conflict between a father and daughter is not something that such a high-ranking person would deal with. Stop whining at every meeting. Duncan cannot consider himself a parent because he behaves inappropriately. It is strange that the ancestors told future rulers to beware of this family, that the master and his son are both incompetent oafs whom nothing can help. Haley is completely different. She is different. Her facial expression changes. Because the girl is standing in the gazebo in the garden and greeting her husband, the young man asks her not to rush to meet him, but to come down to her, so as not to bother her even more. All this time, the girl was busy carving wood. She wants to make something similar to what she gave earlier. Talismans create an excellent barrier that is capable of sufficient protection. Roderick will sleep soundly, and finally, he will be calmer. Haley still doesn't change. For her, it's a compliment. A smile appears on her face. Constancy in people is a great rarity. The man is surprised that the beauty regards it this way. Those figurines haven't been in the room for very long, but they've gotten worn out pretty quickly, as if they're constantly being used. In that case, he wouldn't mind getting a few more, especially since they're from his wife. In his head, the young man makes a note that he will definitely have to buy better quality wood. He asks if it is fun to play with firewood. She does not play games. Her business is very serious. Haley is unhappy. Don't you have to go to work in the office after the transaction? He's standing there and messing around. He has an explanation for this. The day was quite stressful, so he had to put everything aside in order to relieve the tension a little. He has the right to do this. I wonder what happened. For added drama, the man sighs. The Duke was indignant at being denied an audience with the Queen. He thought Roderick was personally forbidding the meeting, as if Haley were a child who would easily obey. Her father has started to have a phase shift in his old age. The girl thinks so. It seems that she cannot stand her relative, which is understandable. It remains to be found out why Duncan is so confident in the fact that the Queen will not be able to contradict him and obey. They seem to have different ideas about each other, but in general, they can agree to a meeting with Duncan. The maiden will do as His Majesty wants. The lady said not to use her for the right purposes. A sharp wave of anger rises inside. Roderick asks angrily, "Does he really look like a person who wants to break through as a different person?" He insistently asks not to say that anymore, because it's unpleasant. Human relationships are difficult for Yijia, but with ghosts, everything is much clearer. She has communicated only with them throughout her life. Duncan is sad to think that she is starting to bore Blake. The girl falls silent, which makes her even sadder. She sits down next to him and tries to talk. The gentleman pretends to be offended. "You're not even going to console me." The beauty feels strange. She stutters and asks not to be angry. Haley is the first to take the hand, and she is also asked not to be angry. The head falls on the table, silence again, until the Queen begins to try to find out what she did wrong. The hero asks to forget about his words and talk as before. He doesn't like what's happening. It makes him uncomfortable. Earlier, he asked to remain silent, and his wife quickly agreed. She gives in too often. Roderick doesn't want to continue what he started. He reaches for the girl's waist and pulls her closer. Burying his fingers in her hair, he gently kisses her lips, becoming more and more assertive. As soon as Haley pulls away, her expression becomes offended. She liked everything, and the moment was also chosen appropriately. It's just that the young man is acting too impudently. It's important for him to know what's on her mind. He's trying to understand more. Getting close to another person is definitely not an easy task. The beauty assures that everything is fine with her. But even so, it is immediately obvious that she is being disingenuous when she says this. In any case, she was not disgusted. Enough has been said. The lips spread into a smile, because everything is fine between them again. The man asks for forgiveness for his harshness. He understands that he should have behaved differently so as not to show himself in such a way. It is clear that the young man cares about Haley. She does not feel forced to ask for forgiveness, but she does it anyway. She wanted everything to turn out as well as possible, but perhaps she chose the words incorrectly. She should have been more careful. They turned everything into a joke, so the conversation didn't reach a dead end. But despite this, it was clear that the girl was speaking in all seriousness. The young man wouldn't be able to withstand another argument. When the lady lowered her eyes to the floor, it was impossible not to get angry. There is a constant feeling that the beauty is preparing to be driven into a corner. Deciding to make the heroine feel even more embarrassed, the husband asks what days they are going to kiss him. She assured that she didn't consider it a disgusting activity, which meant they could agree on at least once a day. They were on their honeymoon. They could be a little more generous. Yijia pretended not to hear. At such moments, she seemed very naive, and it was sweet. Nephrite is compiling a new report that he was assigned to make about the Queen. His subordinates' thoughts on this matter are extremely strange. The further the investigation goes, the more questions arise. There is no other way out. He will have to ask for help. The last person I wanted to ask for help from was Lawrence. The commander called him and asked him to come in. He explained in advance that there were questions regarding Haley and her past. Later, the king is also informed that Irvain has read the dossier on the lady and is disturbed by the fact that a weakling was allowed to meddle in the affairs of someone else's wife. The man asks to tell him not to meddle where it is not necessary anymore. Jade explains the situation. Calling Sir Lawrence was his idea. The report is more detailed than the previous one. A new study was conducted. Those who did it expanded the search area. Nothing changes. The new dossier has no significant differences from the previous one. They gathered all of Haley's acquaintances, all the servants, and even the friend of the action, with whom they had long since lost contact. The information is leaking. Only the queen herself does not add up. Even Irvain was surprised that the kingdom doubted the authenticity. The man had no choice but to take a break to think. He shouldn't have called his ex-lover anyway. It was wrong. Once a week, or more often, she sews new clothes for herself, often sings songs. Before marriage, the lady never contradicted her father. The brunette calmly asks if the girl from the report and his wife are the same person. The situation is too confusing. Duncan is sitting near the lake. Suddenly, a spirit emerges from the water. The lady screams in surprise, but only in a whisper, because after the last time the maid and the knight, who were assigned to keep an eye on her, do not leave her side. She looks at the water only from afar. She is not afraid, but she is not going to come closer. The beauty is indignant that they are trying to seduce her, to drag her there, and then kill her. The man jokes, "If I wanted, I would have done it a little differently." Some time passes before the beauty asks again if they really can't help her. She remembers very well how everything ended last time. It seemed like the topic had long been closed, but Haley continues to resist, asking for something unrealistic. He can't cope on his own, and besides, he has come to the realization that death may await him in the end. The damned ghosts are too strong, but Roderick's condition and whether he will live on depends on his victory. Kang Yija is a little worried. She does not admit it directly. She just does not want to lose her husband. Considering him a good enough person, the spirit doubts this. His character is not the best, but still, he does not deserve such a punishment. Something must have happened between the couple, since they come to Blake's defense almost immediately. No one cares how far they've gone. Although nothing goes beyond kissing, it seems. I understand that you're not that close yet. Roderick will have a hard time. It's even surprising how much their tastes coincide. Maybe the girl is so attractive. Haley is doing well. She should continue in the same spirit. She is constantly praised, but they refuse to give advice. It's not clear where. The ghost simply vanished. The lady is talking to herself, and servants immediately appear behind her. It's strange to think that they heard the conversation. The king is approaching. The situation becomes more logical. His Majesty leans over and asks if they are hiding from him on purpose. If his wife so strongly wants the lake to be completely filled with earth, she can continue to walk around. He was worried that something would happen again, so he came. The good news is that everything is fine, and the worries were in vain. The knight and the maid were watching the lady carefully, exactly as they were ordered. He does not know that the two ran closer as soon as they noticed a figure in the distance. Nothing will happen. The lady explains that she doesn't do anything like that. I want to ask her directly about everything related to the report, but this doesn't seem possible. Duncan is just starting to open up, scare her. He'll immediately hide in his shell again. To continue the conversation, the young man asks the girl to sing him a song. She tries to object. Doing it more than persistently, she is not good at singing, especially if she does it in front of others. The hero didn't just say this. He decided to double-check all the points from the research that was conducted on Haley. He is convinced that she really doesn't have the habit of humming under her breath. She asks His Majesty to do her a favor and do the same. Asking the king to sing is out of the question, but it's worth admitting that the recklessness is quite cute. As soon as the girl takes his place, she can also refuse on the same terms. She laughs. Perhaps I won't even try after that. Attention is focused on the soft expression on the young lady's face. Without holding back, Roderick reaches out and puts his hand on her hair. He asks if the lady wants to kiss him. Again, he can't refuse. The kiss makes her face blush. Everything is too drawn out. The beauty forces the man to move away. He does not make too abrupt movements, but they are incredibly aggressive. Turning away, the brunette feels shame. He feels that he is losing his mind when the situation reaches such absurdity. He has to justify himself. He doesn't do this on purpose. To make amends for his guilt a little, the hero explains that he doesn't do this on purpose. He offers to go to dinner together. This will help them get at least a little closer. They are heading back to the castle. The maiden does not let go of her husband's hand. It seems to him that things will not get better at this rate. She advises him to come even closer and take her hand. She knows that they cannot refuse her and will do everything anyway. A little sad that the item from the entire list of plans was never completed. It was not possible to talk normally with the spirit. Next time, I will have to try again. The man answers the question asked to him about where he will sleep. Perhaps he can stay in the beauty's chambers. She calmly says that she wants to spend time in his room. She needs to inspect the bedroom. Not knowing the true intentions, the blue-eyed man blushes and quietly asks again. He clarifies just in case. As soon as Haley understands how her request sounded, she immediately apologizes and explains that this is not at all true. They don't even have time to ask her, because everything becomes perfectly clear anyway. The beauty wants to look at the room. She was there before, but she didn't get a chance to really look around. Then she wanted with all her heart to run away from there, so as not to encounter even more ghosts, of which there were plenty there. The king doesn't think it's right to ask permission every time. The queen has the ability to do whatever she wants. The face changes from cheerful to pained. The spirit refused to help. Duncan will do everything on his own. The first point of the plan remains the same. We need to inspect Roderick's room. Very soon, the lady will be collecting talismans on herself. She would like to go straight ahead, decked out in amulets, but that would be too suspicious. There is a bracelet on her hand. There are not really that many weapons that can be crafted with your own hands. Knocking on the door, the heroine hears a low voice. She is allowed to enter. The aura inside is nasty. Everyone who follows in her footsteps is there, all spirits. There are also those who wander around the room from side to side, or those who sit in the corner, not reacting at all. Everything in the room itself is fine. Only these ghosts interfere. The problem will be solved. It will not be entirely easy. The man can't help but notice that the lady is really looking around carefully, as if her life depended on it. She doesn't find anything interesting. Picking up the queen in his arms, he smiles and asks what he can put in there so that she will come by more often. Since the premises are in order, it's time to change something. It would definitely not hurt the girl to pay attention to her husband. He tried very hard to put things in order before his arrival, and expects at least some praise. The lady steps back. She wants to say something, until her attention is drawn to 2 talismans. One of them has already gone bad, and this is upsetting, because it means only one thing. The lady did something wrong. Don't worry, the wood is probably not dry enough. The servants will change it. The figurines are an indication of how hard it was for Roderick. Spending all his time completely alone, he suffered from torment day after day. Haley assures that she will cut out new ones, and the old ones can be thrown away, so as not to become an eyesore. It becomes scary that something bad will happen again from this new invention. The maiden cannot stand it, and finally asks the question whether the king has committed any great sins. The most obvious explanation for the whole situation is a grave sin, for which a person must bear punishment from above. Perhaps all the negative karma of the last 500 years was falling on him. It is unlikely that any person sitting on the throne could answer him negatively. What is good for one is poison for another. One has to live and hope that the efforts are not without meaning. Haley thinks that all this is just nonsense. She herself is no gift. She may have managed to do a little mischief in her life. It seems that she has not committed any terrible crimes. Otherwise, she would have to serve a sentence. Karma would suffer. For a long time, Yija was angry at one person. She subconsciously blamed all the problems on him. She understood that he had his reasons. She only wanted one thing, for him to know how bad the girl felt. It's funny to admit, but one day I suddenly felt sorry for people, and for everyone. It took me a while to realize that there are many people suffering in the world. My resentment and pity became more pronounced. Every day, pity gave way to hatred and vice versa. It was exhausting. The beauty began to realize that the longer she did this, the lonelier she became. Yija was so stupid back then. She needed to grow up to deal with her emotions on her own. She couldn't take them out on others. It was bad for her karma. His Majesty doesn't exactly look like someone who has trouble controlling himself. His problems must have another explanation. The maiden notices that she has become very talkative. Perhaps the knight has such a strong influence on her. She asks for forgiveness for tiring him with boring conversations. The man was not at all against it. For the first time in a long time, the wife opened her heart a little. This feeling quickly disappeared. Haley, who showed a part of herself, carefully hid it until she could no longer hold back. "We need to move on," the lady asks the gentleman to say at least something. It would be better to come up with names for the talismans. It's funny that Roderick has shown his dislike for them for a long time. He does like things, and this is a good sign. He wonders if the gods are guarding his sleep. A smile can't help but remain on his face, even if only for a short while. But the young man was able to see the real Duncan, who isn't hiding under layers of masks, and this makes him happy. The first amulet should be named Haley. In honor of its owner, the heroine cannot even resist, because it seems completely useless. The second will be called Yija. It protects his majesty, body, and mind. Since the piece of wood is named after his wife, the man can never throw it away. Such are the rules. The maiden cannot say that the name does not belong to her, and ask not to throw away the second one either. There is turmoil in her soul. She has never thought about such a thing before. The time has come to retire. From the moment they talked, the beauty has not said another word. She lies on the bed with a detached expression on her face, which is very characteristic of her. It is sad to see her in this state. Noticing his intense gaze, the beauty quietly asks the gentleman what's going on. They agreed to spend the night for one day, but that's not enough for him. It's a bit against the rules. However, there was no response to her words, which means there's still room for negotiation. Haley is not so simple. She suggests reducing the number of times. Surprisingly, in the Duncan family, it is the father who is involved in politics, and not the daughter. Although she, as it turns out, is such a cunning person, this makes you want to laugh. The mood rises. Each time, the king becomes more and more convinced of the woman's hidden nature. He asks if he can check for a tail. His hands reach down somewhere, causing his face to flush. The girl jokingly asks him to stop. The young man has too much imagination. Since he considers it necessary to do something like this, he turns his body over and, raising his hands above his head, presses them with his palm. The situation looks less and less like a joke, from the expression on his face and from the look full of warmth. It's uneasy. The best solution that comes to mind is to start kicking. From this moment, the lady does not plan to stand on ceremony any longer. She said not to joke with her. After all, she plays sports. She even has muscles. There's a silence, just before the brunette notices that all of this is incredibly amazing. When the girl is nearby, his eyes close on their own. Although insomnia constantly torments him in the room, hugging her, he wishes her good night. Waking up in the middle of the night, the beauty casts a protection spell. Roderick's sound sleep will come in very handy. She has more important things to do than stay in bed. Those who want to avenge their offense can line up. All the spirits will get what they deserve. Nasty sounds are heard all around, the colors are getting thicker, and it is becoming harder to breathe. No one is burning with the desire to calm down peacefully. One of the largest in size laughs disgustingly, asking if the stranger is really so sure that she can endure everything. Ghosts have a peculiarity. They instantly find weak spots and can easily undermine the mind of anyone. The safest thing to do is not to fall for their provocations. The spirit is rotten to the core. Even Grandma Yunsun would be too tough for him. Amulets and rosary beads are useless in such a case. The beauty doesn't know what can give her strength. Turning to look around, she notices 2 talismans that are on the table. She doesn't have enough strength. The spirit reminds her of this again. She is not going to give up in any case. It will be better this way. Roderick's words about how he would never throw away one of the gifts because her name is Haley float up in her subconscious. Her heart skips a beat. Without wasting a second, the heroine rushes forward. The ghost hisses. These trinkets won't help you. Grasping the thing with both hands, the queen summons all her energy. Doing it in the best way, the maiden admits that she was the guardian who protected Roderick from the influence of his enemies. Doing this every night without any problems. The bright light becomes even brighter. It blinds, making you feel terrible, fast and inevitable, like 100 miles in an instant. Looking around, the heroine admits to herself that her skills have improved. Grandma would be amazed. The sparring was good, but it's not that simple. The girl can't handle it twice in one night. They'll meet again next time, and anyone who tries to show off too much won't get offended. One of the amulets has been through a lot and has become even more terrifying. It's not easy, because one battle is worse than the other. Nothing can be changed. The body has not fallen apart, but a man can run away from such a sloppy appearance. It will not be easy. There is not enough strength to climb onto the bed. A heavy burden on the soul, which is completely inexplicable. In the morning, the maiden was still able to find strength. The first rays of the sun make the gentleman wake up. The figurine standing very close was not so battered just a day ago. It's surprising what happened to it. After that day, the young man seemed to have discovered a completely new entertainment for himself, which brought him more pleasure. The next day, he says that he will go back to his chambers, because all this time he was next to the beauty in her room. Instead of stopping him, Haley calmly says that she has nothing against it, and that during that difficult night that she spent in the royal room, everything became clear. The young man has a huge reserve of energy, since he copes with problems every day. Still, the girl wanted only the best. She did not want to leave Roderick there, alone with the demons. She constantly allowed him to sleep in her room and was upset if the king wanted to go back to his place. He really liked it. The heroine wasn't stupid. She understood everything perfectly well, so she calmly says that she's just joking about everything. The queen learns quickly. His Majesty reaches for his waist with his hands. Although they are dirty, he doesn't pay attention to this, but laughs. Then, kick me if you don't like it. Roderick wants to be as close to Haley as possible. He doesn't like to break away from her embrace, not even understanding why he feels so at ease next to the girl. It's difficult to understand why he still continues to hug her again and again. It's not clear whether this is a good deed. Relationships are complicated, so honesty is important in any relationship with people. The heroine hides too much, as if they are not equals, and she compensates for the omission by caring for the king, so every night she has to fight spirits. The virgin sits down to carve again. This time, she is working on a totem that will be stronger than the previous two. Another masterpiece will soon be born. It's time to get used to how things are. The mistress's preferences are too specific to please. There is no reaction. The work continues to boil. Because it needs to be finished just in time, on the calm and silent face, sometimes an expression of unbearable melancholy appears. The king also has a slightly specific taste, since he likes her. The discussions in society do not stop. Rumors are circulating that Haley is too weird. She continues to resist what her husband tells her. He asked her not to go to the lake, but every time she returns, not considering it such a big problem. The maid asks not to say that. The woman does what she thinks is necessary. The spirit has not appeared since the day they last spoke before returning to the castle. The heroine says that she plans to go to the library first. Deborah runs forward. She covers her mistress with her body. She calmly asks if the king is really in front of her again. Her gaze shows fear. Because Lawrence is visible in front, emotions gradually begin to get out of control. The man shouldn't have come. They'll have to evacuate immediately. Haley turns around and wants to run, but her legs seem to give out and can't move. The maid considers it unheard of rudeness that the queen is addressed by name and that some knight is doing it. Her Majesty understands her fate. She quietly says that everything is fine. Looking at the floor, the young man apologizes for his behavior and asks to give him at least a minute of attention. They move to the side, where no one can hear them. The blonde wants to ask one question. His soul becomes even heavier. A sincere, loving look does not allow him to know what peace is. Kang Yija turns away and asks herself not to pay attention. Because they are not looking at her, it is starting to irritate. There is a constant feeling inside, as if something is being taken away from the previous owner. The gentleman heard about what happened before the wedding. He reminds me of what has already happened. Don't you remember my words? The knight promised to always be there and care for her happiness, even if only as a guard. The queen quietly explains that what happened was considered nothing more than an accident. Everything between them is long over. Haley is dead. Desperately clinging to the past is in vain. If you continue in the same spirit, then the soul of the deceased will never be able to rest in peace. Tears in his eyes, the blonde does not understand why the lady is crying. Not accepting the handkerchief, she turns around and runs away. As usually happens, the king was later informed that his wife had been crying. The heroine was worried, as she had wanted to avoid such a conversation. The servants never allow anything to be hidden, and this could not help but upset her. There is a drawn-out silence. The blue-eyed man waits a bit, and then asks what will happen next. The beauty pretends not to understand what is being discussed. She tries in every possible way to avoid revealing her true feelings. They say that the queen met with Sir Lawrence. They just chatted for a couple of minutes. But even that was enough. He wanders around the palace as if he has permission to do so. Next time, Roderick promises to break the blonde's legs. It's hard for the young man to understand what kind of love it is, which makes him cry at every meeting. He should have killed the man while hunting. The maiden jokes that the king's face will soon burst from anger. He responds rudely. It's not that the lady was misunderstood, or that Lawrence is a former lover. Ija didn't do anything. She was promised that no one would rush her, but it seems the gentleman is starting to get tired of the pointless waiting. The king shouldn't worry about trifles. Only the situation in the past and the present is different. Feelings do not stand still. They actively grow, intensifying to an impossible limit. The hero remains silent, continuing to cut meat onto a plate. It's impossible to hold back laughter. The gentleman's expression changes almost immediately, and he skeptically asks to share what made you laugh. Haley explains, I ran into Lawrence by chance. It wasn't my initiative. In this case, the beauty should not make an expression on her face as if it matters. Otherwise, it will really seem that there was something between them. She is not lying, and this is clear. The young man was not angry either. He was just checking the reaction. It's better to change the subject of the conversation and start eating. A servant with a tray approaches the table. The next dish is snails with vegetables. The sight of them makes him feel sick. The king, surprised, asks what the reason for such a reaction is. Haley says she's fine. She's just not a big fan of snails. Jade runs up and asks in surprise, because she remembers that the report had completely different information. The blue-eyed one also remembers this. He didn't realize it right away. The knight is almost in tears, because rechecking the report 3 times has made him neurotic. So as not to embarrass Haley, the man is taken out. Although he tries to resist in every possible way, the girl is almost brought to a heart attack again. Too many events. The beauty does not want to eat anymore. She is full. The mistress expresses her desire to spend the night in the master's bedroom. She secretly hopes that she will be able to deal with another demon. She even suggests changing rooms. This is a very delicate way of saying that she doesn't want to sleep together. Sleeping separately is indeed more comfortable. She doesn't have to worry about Blake waking up in the middle of the night, but that's not what she means, in which case she is asked to allow them to be together. And even if the girl doesn't want to give consent, this will be punishment for her betrayal. The hero himself can't believe that he said it out loud. In response, they smile at him, because the lady can't be against it. The air gets tense. The gentleman asks if the beauty is doing this on purpose, not giving her a chance to come to her senses. His Majesty presses her against the wall and kisses her passionately. This continues for several minutes, as if the gentleman wants to eat Haley. Finally, he manages to gather all his will into a fist. The king pushes the lady into the room and agrees that it is better to be apart, because he risks going completely crazy. His imagination has run wild from just one kiss. The beauty feels lost. She only wanted to protect her husband from the vengeful spirits that constantly haunt him. He should not suffer and be tormented by nightmares, but nothing works. The end of the day wasn't so bad. The next day the news spread. The lady allowed an audience. She didn't show her face for a long time. Everyone around thought that nothing would come of it. They wanted to manipulate and use her. Haley listens to everyone, and each time calmly promises that she will tell her husband everything. From her experience, the maid is sure that she will simply complain about everyone. Deborah explains that it is permissible to be angry and not agree with everything. The heroine shrugs. She doesn't see any logic. There are already so many bad people in the world. Maybe Haley is even more dangerous than Jade, since she shows herself to be a dark horse from the faction of Roderick's supporters. Those who arrive for the audience are almost finished. The last visitor remains. The Duke comes in. He pretends to be a visitor. The Duke comes in. He pretends to ask forgiveness for not warning, but he really wanted to see his daughter. The man really did show up at the very last moment. The girl won't chase her father away. He asks directly when they plan to take people from House Duncan into service. A lot of time has passed since the ascension to the throne. Virgo has the right to independently select everyone she likes and not ask about anything. She is glad of this opportunity, but does not plan to take advantage of it. I think that this generosity is not necessary. The servants in the castle are already doing a great job. The man offers to do at least something. For example, bring Albert back into service, since he is a brother. This is what a father should do, not a daughter. The best option is for the gentleman to come himself and personally ask for everything. He is not mute, especially since they are both adults, which means they do not need transfers through another person. The man feels that he can't take it anymore, and what is happening is driving him crazy. This is such incredible audacity. Clenching his teeth, the old man asks everyone to leave the room. He asks for a private audience. Deborah looks at the lady with concern. She gives a signal with just one look that everything will be all right, and confirms that it is best to take everyone away. The lady is left alone. For a moment, there is silence. The Duke starts yelling. He doesn't see the point in what's happening. The king has obviously turned the girl against her own father. The maiden remains calm. She assures him that this is not true. His Majesty is not that kind of person. She expresses her opinion independently. The beauty acts as if she is not going to help her family, but wants to destroy the house. There is no point in arguing with Duncan. He is not a relative of Kang Yi-jae. No one knows that the real soul has left the body. One should rather be angry with it. Although everything ended on time, otherwise its life would have been too sad, too empty. The heroine should try to defend her honor, or at least object. She never asked to be made a queen, and she certainly didn't want to sit on the throne. She wasn't interested in it until her father forced her. Nothing was destroyed, at least not in relation to the family, because it's all not true. Duncan destroyed Haley's life. He already lost his real daughter. She suffered her own. In a calm voice, the lady asks him to leave and to come next time by appointment. Going crazy, the man hisses that one should not forget one's origins. If the family collapses, she will not remain safe either. You have to look closely to see that his face is strangely blurred. You wonder if he has accumulated more sins, and what will happen to him next, whether he killed someone or is only planning to carry it out in reality. The beauty is tired of listening to everyone about how much she will regret it. The Duke says goodbye, doing it in the most unpleasant manner. The door closes, leaving his daughter in silence. The king spends more time in the Asaruka forest. He heard that Haley tore the Duke to pieces when she said that the old man would regret it. She sounded like someone else, completely different from her real self. You have to be a little more careful with Duncan. The gentleman doesn't really like Haley's father either, but he has to restrain himself sometimes. The lady doesn't want to talk about anything. The young man continues the topic. It is hard to believe that the lady does not feel anything for her father. She shrugs her shoulders. Because she really does not care somehow. She does not admit it, but does not want to talk about it, not because of Duncan, but because she remembers her parents who abandoned her. Blue-Eyed has long noticed a trend where his wife often uses words that are filler. She insists on completely and unconditionally hiding her true feelings. At this rate, they will not move forward. It's sad the attitude the queen is showing. She has no plans to change unless she is forced to. The young man explains that he wants to get to know Haley better, to study her a little more, so that he can at least understand what kind of relationship awaits them in the future. Her cheeks flush, which betrays her. Roderick suggests leaving the crafts for later, and instead taking a walk and talking. He asks what else Her Majesty likes. Of course, besides wooden figurines and meditations. The beauty is dragged up the stairs. She doesn't know if she needs it, but the gentleman asks her not to worry. He is sure that she will like everything. She just needs to be patient a little. Although the long climb up the stairs itself is not very pleasant. Initially, the lady showed interest in the magical place. It will be more interesting to learn more about King Asarux. Since the forest named after him is so liked, he believed that the castle was protected by some force. They say the king was the best swordsman. Surely, for the same reason, the Lord made that place sacred. In the tower where the married couple arrived, there is more than one portrait of all the previous kings. In front hangs an image of the founder of Cayenne and the master of the forest. The lady covers her mouth with her hands to keep from screaming. Everything finally falls into place. The same spirit that was constantly pestering her was none other than Asarex Blake. He should have introduced himself and not played games. The 15th king decided to pose with his wife. They say that he was a great romantic and a hero lover. The lady is offered to order a drawing, but she refuses. I do not want to be depicted. The beauty reaches Roderick's portrait. For some reason, she begins to smile. Then she is unable to hold back a light laugh, her gaze carefully studying every small feature of the face and clothes. It seems that everything is fine. It's just that the picture didn't fully convey reality. Haley seems to be hinting that the young man looks better in real life. He is pleased to hear this. Not everyone is able to understand this. The man looks calmly at his ancestor. He asks why all the time they talk. She continues to stare forward. It may seem that love at first sight is to blame. Lady, I didn't think that spirit would turn out to be a real king. At the time of his death, the young man was almost 40, but until the end of his days, the hero was able to preserve his beauty. When he says this, he appears nearby, causing the girl to jump up. She was frightened by his voice and appearance. The expression on his face is twisted. The gentleman is especially nasty. Usually ghosts retain their death image. Perhaps Asarex was preserved in order to flirt with girls, or for his own vanity. He passed away, cherishing the ideals of that era until his very last breath. To live in pain or in happiness is the choice of every person. And this is something wonderful, because no one is doomed to something that they themselves could not fully change. Those who carry high ideals throughout their lives become spirits. For this reason, the former ruler became a guardian. The young man behaves inappropriately. He continues to be narcissistic. The girl doesn't care about ideals. She's ready to start hysterics. The situation is taking on such strange colors. She wants the same thing she asked for earlier. You have to help me. The blonde behaves as he pleases, but he certainly won't interfere in the affairs of mortals. He's a little outraged by the fact that he has to stand in the same line with vengeful ghosts. It's uncultured. This will give Roderick nothing, because no matter how much his wife begs for help, nothing will change. So it is better not to waste precious time. Every person deserves to be saved, but even these words do not change anything. Kang Yijie had spent so much time with the spirits that she had already forgotten that she was a human herself. One could even die like that. The lady would experience mixed feelings. She would never give up so easily. It would be too easy. A spirit of patriotism is activated within. The ancestors from the eastern country loved their people. Even the ancestral goddesses helped the younger generation as much as it was possible. But the king does not do this. It seems the lady misunderstood, and this is calmly explained to her. The blonde man is treated rudely, and here he breaks down. It's worth remembering who he is, and therefore being more polite. He certainly can't interfere. The lady apologizes. She somehow didn't think about the relationship. After all, he is practically her father-in-law, albeit a very distant one. There's a discussion going on in the hall. There was an uprising on the western border, but the situation was quickly resolved. There's nothing to be proud of. The king had said earlier that the opposition movement of the Daimon Empire had to be nipped in the bud. Roderick was told that there was nothing to worry about, although he asked to double-check everything. The attack happened due to carelessness, and this is not the best situation that could exist. Subordinates struck the place they considered the base. The gentleman doesn't understand why the situation is happening so unexpectedly. Duncan smiles wickedly. It seems to him that the most logical thing to do is punish the commander of the Western Army. Such a blunder on his part is a worthy reason for a demotion. The brunette snorts. It's obvious to the naked eye that he's simply trying to push his son around. Someone in the crowd shouts that this is disdain, but Roderick would rather figure it out himself than listen to advice from those who can't even answer for their own actions. Later, at a meeting, the knight proposes to suppress the rebellion by force, but the king is against it. They will leave the western border in a terrible state, and this will cause many losses, which is why Jade was sent to the west in person to check the situation not just with words. The subordinate refused back then because he didn't know who would protect the ruler. He should have thought about what would happen if the young man suddenly fell into madness. Nothing would help him. The image of the queen comes to mind. With her arrival at the castle, the situation has noticeably changed. The blue-eyed man is digging through a book. There is a message to future kings. During the reign of the fourth, noble houses of the empire were accepted into the royal family. Nominally, this was done to unite the nations, but in reality, out of fear, the noble houses included Duncan. There is a note there that the Duke's family is the most untrustworthy. The young man had often looked at the painted stories, but he had never attached any importance to the details. The movement to restore the empire arose in the west, which is why Albert was expelled from the west to the south, although his father was against it. The obsession with the position is strange. It is unlikely that a man desires it so strongly for patriotic reasons. The late king, who suspected this family of having ties to the opposition, was obviously right. He would not have written fables. Times are changing. Not everything is so simple. One can only speculate whether the Duncans retain the same level of influence. During the times of the empire, this family was able to rise to the ranks of aristocrats thanks to some extraordinary ability. Judging by the records, this same ability then disappeared, leaving no trace behind. This happened after the reign of the fifth king, but too many questions remain. The gentleman slams the diary shut. The commander-in-chief is given a special assignment, namely, to bring the king, even if he does not want to go, to drag him by force. Jade is surprised, but does not ask unnecessary questions so as not to irritate Roderick. He simply nods, promising to do everything in his power. The Duncan family must definitely not be given what they want. Namely, under no circumstances should Albert be allowed to become the one in charge of the West and its defenses. No matter how much the Duke asks, he will not be allowed to get what he wants. Of course, not everyone in the family is so terrible. After her husband's meeting ends, Haley comes up with the figurine. She hands over the gift that she promised to give earlier. She finally managed to finish everything. Remembering the inscription about how to be on guard, the young man can't help but laugh. The girl's facial expression doesn't match it at all, as does her personality. The talisman would fit perfectly in the bedroom, but it has too evil an expression on its face. In battle, the main thing is to scare the enemy, so the maiden tried her best. His Majesty needs friends. The nights are getting stranger, surrounded by wooden blocks. It's time to go to rest. Earlier, the lady said that she wanted to stay in the room. The man couldn't hold back and, throwing his wife onto the bed, began kissing her. She gave in to her feelings and then pushed him away, which became painful. I didn't come here for this. The brunette won't give in so easily. He didn't have time to ask why he was constantly being pushed away, doing it with such enthusiasm, as if the beauty was afraid or hated her. She felt a little awkward. The king also felt embarrassed in the presence of his beloved. At first, she didn't believe it. Roderick constantly initiates any intimacy. He persistently asks that, at least once, Haley herself kiss him. She gives in to the request. All movements are awkward, but the most important thing is that the lady does everything out of sincere feelings. It is felt. The gentleman smiles through the kiss and begins to laugh. He does not behave this way because nothing is working out. He is simply glad that he got what he wanted. The beauty behaves like a cat who is gradually starting to get used to it. Not wanting to continue, the beauty covers herself with a blanket, offering to go to bed. Stroking her head, Blake asks not to be offended. He did not want to put her in an awkward situation. She falls asleep very quickly. There is no other option left but to go to bed too. In the middle of the night, the young man opens his eyes. His hand gropes around the bed, but the queen is nowhere to be found. His gaze is blurred and directed forward across the room. In the middle of the room, there is a blurred figure. It is immediately clear who exactly is sitting there. The heroine is talking to someone about a stranger who is very sad and lonely. Everything inside him is turning over. The man feels fear, anxiety. He calls his wife and persistently asks what is happening. Shrugging her shoulders, Duncan says that she decided to meditate. They don't believe her, but there is no other option. Deciding to forget, the gentleman gets out of bed. There is no point in sitting on the cold floor. The lady is already in poor health. She is completely weak. Lifting the girl into his arms, the blue-eyed man asks her to go back to sleep. Meditation can wait until the morning. He admits that he was scared, so he asks that this not happen next time. The heroine miscalculated, and she regretted it, because initially it seemed that if she behaved a little quieter, Roderick would not wake up and would not disturb anything. She wanted to talk, but not with the gentleman, but with one of the spirits that was in the room. Every time the beauty enters her husband's chambers, she is visibly troubled by the soul of the little girl. She cries constantly, realizing that no one will help her, and does not understand where her mother is, constantly repeating that she is very hungry and will take revenge on everyone. The man looks in the direction where his wife's gaze is directed. He doesn't know how long he can ignore the lie. In the morning, Haley realized that nothing is working. The plan is not moving forward. She couldn't even exorcise the ghost, although she made a very strong effort to do so. There are more and more questions in my head. Some of them indicate that the beauty feels useless. She does not understand what she is doing in her new life. The spirit thinks that he does nothing either, to which they object. Even though I eat, I don't do all sorts of nonsense. She'll have to figure out what to do next. The situation is gradually worsening and becoming a stalemate. The heroine is most concerned about the point. Go to the place where Haley tried to drown herself. It seems to be the river next to the temple in the very heart of the capital. There you can summon a spirit, but the lady doesn't know where to get permission to leave the palace. Is it worth it to approach the king? The thought has been formulated, which means it's time to run to the master. Going out into the corridor, she collides with him. He says that he wants to have lunch together. He does not immediately ask what Haley wanted to ask. They will talk on the way. The man wanted to introduce his wife to an important person, and the lady needs to get permission to leave the castle. There is no need to act so formally. The queen is asked where she is going. The answer, there and back, is not satisfactory. Without knowing the exact destination, planning a safe route or posting guards is unrealistic. There is nothing more to hide. The maiden will go straight to the temple. The lady explains that she wants to go and pray. She hasn't been there for a long time and thinks that it's worth visiting this place. She finishes speaking, believing that there will be no problems and they will let her leave in peace. Blue-eyed can't take it anymore. He breaks down and starts screaming, of course. It's a little strange to think that since the gentleman believes in everything, you can easily make an idiot out of him. Next to that temple, there is a river in which Haley tried to drown herself before the wedding. The lady doesn't look like someone who can go and pray, and the man doesn't allow her to try to justify herself, sternly warning that if they bring up such a topic again, they will cover everything with earth, so that she won't have the opportunity to repeat the mistakes of the past. Attempts to convey that the words are true and the truth are cut short. The king waves it off, advising them to stop so that he does not get angry in the end. A voice is heard. Someone interrupts their conversation. The girl looks over her shoulder. In front of her stands an incredibly handsome young man. He asks what is going on. While His Majesty answers him, it is impossible not to notice that the man is incredibly similar to Roderick. They are like two peas in a pod, only the length of their hair is different. The gentleman approaches the young man and is about to introduce him. It turns out that this is his younger brother, Prince Edgar, who had to wait until they finished their conversation. The lady cannot remember whether Haley had met him before, when she was still alive. The lady is complimented. She is as beautiful as they said. The brunette remarks that his brother talks about his wife so often that he could draw a portrait from memory. The blue-eyed one snorts. That's what I'm worried about. Sipping his tea, the king mutters something through his teeth about how he is afraid inside that Edgar might seduce the girl and take her away from her family. The lady freezes in horror. Such things cannot be said, especially when there is a stranger nearby. The hero doesn't stop. He continues to talk about how this is the fate of a man who has a beautiful wife. Duncan can't stand it and jumps up to cover his mouth with his hands. The good news is that the woman is very caring and shows it directly. Taking the palm, the blue-eyed man gently kisses the inside. Jed decides not to interfere anymore. A man has the right to do whatever he wants. If he's going to disgrace himself, then to the end, he takes it literally. The beauty is shamed even more when they say that she has a small mouth, so she has to cut all her food into pieces. Haley turns to Edgar. She heard that he studied abroad, so she is interested to know what subjects he studied while he was there. She is not that shy. Blue-eyed can't help but recall his first meeting with his future wife. It seems to have happened at a debutante ball. He doesn't remember it well because that evening he tried not to get close to the Duke, who was constantly in the way. Perhaps he should have done so. Then he would have gotten to know the girl better than he did. Despite all the regret that what happened has already happened, Edgar reports that he studied archaeology, history, and philosophy. In fact, he only covered himself with research. Just to travel, he considers himself a slacker that he dumped all the responsibilities on his brother. The maiden becomes sad. She is a little envious. She would also like to travel, to freely go where her soul calls, without staying anywhere for long. Sharply hitting the table with her fork, the king asks to stop discussing such things. The young man calmly explains that he doesn't mind going with his wife. She doesn't immediately understand what he's talking about, but is immediately surprised, because earlier she asked to go to the river where Haley drowned herself. Finally, everything has changed, and she will be able to see everything. Despite the small joy, the beauty looks displeased, continuing to glare at him. He would be calmer this way, but this is not suitable. The lady wanted not only to look around, but also to summon a spirit, and His Majesty will ruin everything. This is completely unacceptable. The young man can't trust his wife, especially when she reacts like that. She already promised that she would never harm the master. The brunette teases him with words. Instead, you'll harm yourself. Edgar intervenes in the conversation, of course. He does not want to behave incorrectly, but it seems that it would be useful for the queen to take a walk alone, to change the environment, not to feel closed within four walls. His brother is ordered to remain silent if he does not know. The king doesn't think it's necessary to continue in the same spirit. It's not the first time he said this. Talking while eating is wrong. So he holds out the plate. The food is very beautiful. You need to eat more, just without forcing yourself. There are rumors around the castle that Edgar has indeed returned to the Empire. Roderick summoned him. Perhaps he wants him to stay in the capital forever. Due to illness, he no longer has the support he used to. And if the prince is in the country, the throne will be under threat. Many believe that Blake has set up surveillance on his relative. Because he is not completely stupid, he knows what is what and why. Deborah asks the lady not to pay attention to evil tongues. She did not intend to, because she is aware of the kind of person His Majesty is. Still, all these words stirred my consciousness. The prince probably stayed abroad so as not to interfere in politics. It is hard to believe that the brothers cannot be together because of the throne. They are family, after all. The place of the king makes a person more lonely. Time flew by quickly, and the interest of the nobility was satisfied just as quickly. A few days later, in the main hall, Blake Jr. was appointed to the post of commander of the Western Border Army, which had been unattended for a long time. Roderick entrusted him with his army, asking him to protect the empire from the evildoers in the form of Damon's followers. The brother bowed his head in submission, approaching the work with full responsibility. The girl recalls that her father was eyeing this position. Everyone around is praising the empire. Only the Duke is clenching his teeth in displeasure. His face will soon crack with anger. The gentleman asks to move to the hall, where a banquet will be held to celebrate his return. Everyone is wished a pleasant evening. Haley follows her husband's brother with her eyes. She cannot help but comment on their differences. Edgar is a scientist. Unlike Roderick, he was a bookworm since childhood. Everything came easy to the man, and if it didn't, he insisted on continuing and not stopping halfway. The girl laughs, asking if this means that her husband hates reading. He exclaims, "That's not true." He enjoys physical activity. It's much better than mental activity. The chain of events just doesn't fit in his head. I wonder why they sent a talented person to the border. They should have let him do what he's good at. The prince was left with no choice. Although he wanted something else, perhaps this was his destiny. Again, a strange expression on his face. The gentleman remembers how the Duke wanted to give the post to his son, and the king was against it, although he did not fully understand this motive. Having to sacrifice Edgar just to not get the job, Haley asks why father is so keen on sending Albert to the border. That's the question Roderick should be asking. Why is he so mean? After all, the lady lived under the same roof with the Duke for 21 years. It would be possible to send the young man far away. But this does not work, because it is Duncan, hair color like Haley's, exotic appearance, outstanding beauty inherited by the entire clan. All this indicates that, in its origin, this nation is foreign. From the Diamond Empire, these are the same people as the knights of the army of that country, the enemies of Cayenne, who continue to stubbornly disturb the peace on the border. The man points to the aristocrats standing to the side, indicating that they are Duncan's comrades. Next to one of them is one of the most promising knights of the order. The other, with gray hair, is a real chatterbox, not worth listening to. The queen laughs. Am I in class? Knowledge is never superfluous. Count Feynman can be seen in the distance. He recently offered investments. The lady said that she would discuss the offer with her husband. She hoped that she did not cause inconvenience to anyone. She did not want to put Roderick in a bad light. The gentleman is only happy if they are a couple. Haley mentioned that sometimes she gets lonely. Feynman handles money so poorly that he almost went broke. His wife even left him. They say the Countess turned a blind eye to her husband's numerous infidelities, and did so until the very end. Living with a womanizer isn't so bad. She could put up with it. But she didn't like living with a poor man. The queen doesn't know what to say to that. Both options sound bad. She hopes that she won't have to choose. The beauty won't have to worry about anything. Her husband is faithful to only one, and he also has a lot of money. A smile freezes on his lips. Haley did the right thing by marrying His Majesty. Leaning closer, he kisses her on the cheek, making her laugh. Despite the pleasant sensations, the Virgo does not fully understand why she is trusted with secrets if her family is enemies. The blue-eyed man finds an answer even to this. He has long ago figured out what his wife really is, what she is like. Of course, Duncan can always go and immediately report everything to his father. But she will not do this. Her heart stops. It is nice to see how much His Majesty trusts. He sees that she is on his side. There is warmth in her chest. She incredibly likes being next to this man. At night, there is another battle. The heroine uses a talisman, which gradually burns out. During the day, she is completely exhausted. And yet, she managed to weaken the spirits so much that she was able to establish a protective barrier, preventing them from terrorizing. The lady plans to do something. The day of the ceremony, on the occasion of the prince's departure, comes. Standing next to the king, the heroine notices that behind Edgar there is someone of unusual appearance. A foreigner. Jade knows who it is, but only by hearsay. As far as is known, this is a close friend of the prince, whom he met while studying abroad. The gentleman asks not to look at others when the woman has him, she snorts, because the behavior is childish again. The gentleman doesn't listen to anything else. Perhaps it's better to cover his mouth. He leans down to kiss. This interaction is definitely pleasant for him. He won't deny it. Walking towards Edgar, his brother pats him on the shoulder. This time, he had to sacrifice his strength, and he himself is not happy about it. As soon as everything settles down, the young man has the right to return and do what he loves. Blue-eyed nods. He doesn't dare object and understands everything, so there won't be any problems with this. Hugging him, Roderick quietly whispers that he won't send him to his death. Don't forget that he is a member of the royal family. If something happens to Blake, he will have to bear responsibility for the Empire. Haley feels lost. She doesn't know how it didn't occur to her before. If something happens to His Majesty, it's not clear what will happen to her next, because the situation will be ambiguous. Kang Yi-ji doubts what she will have to do. To reduce the level of panic, the beauty tries to calm herself down. Her husband comes to her to clarify what happened and why she frowned so much. Everything will be fine. Because Roderick will be protected, the spirits will not be able to cause him any harm. There are several ways to significantly reduce the influence. The prayers that the lady read every day in the master's chambers work well. She is going to visit again to install a protective barrier. She has come up with a form. All that remains is to put it all into practice. The lady is asked why she has come to love spending the night with her husband so much. She could ask him to believe that it is all for the good, but she does not say anything out loud. The beauty touches the handle and freezes. She feels uneasy. Something definitely went wrong. She eliminated a lot of spirits, but their energy is much stronger, which shouldn't be. There are a lot of questions inside, because everything has become exactly the same as it was before. Haley gets lost in space, causing the others to worry. The servants gathered around for some reason think that the queen is pregnant. The symptoms match. The king screams, and the butler calmly tries to explain that no matter what method of protection they use, there is always a possibility. The gentleman throws everyone out and locks the door right in front of their noses. The beauty looks around in confusion. Being in the middle of the room, she is finally convinced of the number of ghosts. In the morning, everything was fine. This makes her soul even worse. It turns out that everything was completely in vain. Haley realizes that the situation is terrible. She will definitely have to find another way to exorcise the ghosts. But she is at the stage of despair. Roderick runs up, seeing that his wife has fallen to her knees, tears in her eyes, swallowing back horror. The heroine quietly asks why the talisman cracked, and the one on top cracked too. Picking up the little thing, the young man asks not to be upset. He is very sorry that everything is turning out this way. Everything will be fine, because there is only a small crack. He will carefully keep the gift, even if it is worn out to dust. The god Haley is in her hands, which means EJ is broken. The shaman feels useless, unable to help in any way, although she wants to help. He has no strength to get up from the floor. Endless thoughts are spinning about what he will have to do next to save Roderick. The young man takes another talisman, promising again that he will keep both, because they worked so hard on them. The form doesn't matter, it's a given. The beauty still can't stop herself from crying. She quietly assures that she's okay. It's not that easy to get up, the man helps. The queen can always speak to her honestly. She will never suffer in her life. No harm will come to her. She smiles tensely. I'm just tired. Another lie. The man recognizes it in advance. The heroine doesn't know, since when there was a need to wait for Roderick to fall asleep, it gradually turns into a struggle. The lady will hold out, but she won't be able to sleep when there are ghosts hovering around, constantly wanting revenge. Nothing goes smoothly in life. This became clear long before this happened. All Yija asks is that the king not suffer. He has suffered enough already. Perhaps this is just a foolish hope. Perhaps the will of heaven does not exist. As soon as the young man falls asleep, Duncan gets up. She will still have to fight to the very end. As long as she can do it, Grandma Youngsun's totem is still intact. She will not have to fight with her bare hands. Since her past life, the beauty had been a wanderer walking through a lonely desert. She wandered aimlessly, trusting fate to take her where it would lead, her heart serving as her guide. The ghost's quiet voice breaks through the veil. He doesn't believe that the lady is trying to protect her husband. She really will do it. She will not give up under any circumstances. Roderick is like a lake found in the desert. She will have to dive deep and get soaked to the skin, but it is a mirage. She is watching her actions. If she dives any deeper, she will die. The girl cannot protect the king. The spirit keeps talking about it. She knows everything. Someday the water level will reach its final height, but her heart continues to reach out to Roderick, around. But even in the deepest darkness, the light of heaven penetrates, which will help dispel the darkness and leave a trace behind. Looking straight into the eyes of the ghost, Haley continues to fight, tears streaming down her cheeks. A person will not bow before the darkness. It will not be defeated. At dawn, when the master opened his eyes, he found Kang Yija lying on top of him. He was surprised because he did not understand why she was sleeping in a different place than usual. Lifting the girl's face, the brunette freezes in horror, his face completely covered in blood. Carefully picking up his mistress in his arms, Roderick shouts for one of the servants to immediately call a doctor. Doctors gathered around the queen, standing to the side. The king asked in an ominous voice why his wife suddenly started bleeding. Was she sick or was she poisoned? The doctor doesn't know what's going on. The lady has no strength at all. She's exhausted, but she's completely healthy. The symptoms defy any understanding. Perhaps the real cause lies beyond the knowledge of the world. Haley begins to come to her senses. His Majesty immediately rushes closer. The heroine does not understand what the servants are doing around her. She cannot believe that she slept for so long. All night long, Kang Yi-je worked on the talismans. She crafted them, and then, without noticing it, she lost consciousness. She had no strength left. The gaze turns to the corner of the room, where one of the gods is located on the table, with a protective aura around it. Half of the totems have long since broken, but this old man holds on like a hero until the very end, with a smile on his face, and this frightens Roderick. The woman notices blood on His Majesty's clothes, and, jumping up, the heroine asks worriedly whether the gentleman had vomited blood. They had covered him from the spirits all night, and it had all been in vain. It turns out that Kang Yi-je lost too much blood. The man is confused by the fact that his wife is so calm. Don't you understand what happened? The young man's hands are shaking. This is not surprising. Anyone would be scared if the person sleeping next to him suddenly started bleeding. Roderick is probably not in a good mood. I want to calm him down, but I'm afraid to blurt out too much. The lady quietly asks if she can go to her room. The king nods and even agrees to help, but they make him worry again. The servants were about to follow them, but Jade stopped them. The girl was placed on the bed in her chambers, and immediately a small spirit ran up, worried. Blue-Eyed asks, to be honest, they are left alone, which means nothing bad will happen. He needs to know in order to protect effectively. The girl is probably aware of why she keeps fainting. It's not easy to show your weaknesses, but still, the situation is critical. There is only hatred inside. The spirits were kept for only one night. There is still the same amount ahead. Haley hates herself, does not want to cause pain to other people. Why do you want to help me? She thinks she's strange and she knows it. Everything is different for her than for other people. The gentleman himself thinks so. There's no point in trying to understand Kang Yi-je when Roderick is already feeling bad. Even if the lady tells everything, they will never believe her, and she will put herself in an even worse light. And even if they do believe her, the attitude will never be the same. To experience the king's gaze, which is full of misunderstanding, is too much. For Haley, such a thing could become a nightmare. There is a belief within that the technique of how to breathe so as not to die from sadness significantly helps. The girl will remain to help from a distance. The heroine tries to push her husband away, but her facial expression shows a completely different picture, as if she wants to be pulled closer. You shouldn't try it alone, because it's wrong. They got married and will stay together forever. That's exactly how it should be in such a relationship. His hands fall on her cheeks to feel the heat coming from her face. The young man can protect Haley. She deserves it. He wants to reach her heart.